The little girl considered herself the main heroine of this world when she was little. Lovely shoes, a lacy dress, soft pudding with little pieces of sugar, and a garden with beautiful butterflies, and also the boundless love of her parents. The little girl considered herself the happiest girl on earth. But when she received the book, she learned the truth about her father's sudden death. And the series of misfortunes that followed is just an unfunny joke to me who wants to make a villain out of her. Robelia was his princess, and he promised to give her everything she wanted. She was 3 years old at the time. In this coffin lies her father, James Ephelentia. Behind them, the women were talking about how he was probably killed, but they said there was no evidence, and it was just a suspicion. As for the family's money, the inheritance would go to Countess Julia, but many thought that this was nonsense. This woman is half gypsy, and for a half-breed to inherit such a fortune is too much. Many people wanted to seize the family's wealth. Moreover, the will could be declared invalid. And then Milan Rebellia's father's brother and her uncle arrived. They all wanted a piece of the inheritance. Therefore, the gentleman said from afar that if she wanted to keep her mouth shut, she should marry him. She must understand that they are a family and must protect Robelia. So the woman said she agreed to marry him. It was an excellent decision. Yulia had no management experience, so she had no choice. She only believed that this would protect her family and her daughter. Well, there was one condition: Robelia was to inherit all the property. Uncle swore an oath on the honor of the deceased James. However, soon after the wedding, Malone's true nature emerged. Julia refused to accept the family inheritance. Malone noted that this was very good, but something was missing. If the blood of his sample flows in this child, then it has a higher status than his. Julia screamed and asked how he could say such a thing to a child who had just recently lost his father. He is her uncle. After all, Malone convinced everyone that James wasn't Robelia's father. He dealt with the other contenders as well, and then intimidated Julia and kicked her out of the family shortly before her death. Julia couldn't leave her daughter with him, so she agreed to lie about the baby's origins in order to escape from Malone's clutches. They and their daughter came to the outskirts to live there peacefully. At 13, Robelia contracted a strange malaria. Malone said there was no need for him to save the child. He's yellow to make her die, and tells her not to forget that the only reason she's still alive is because of his reputation. Julia said that if he healed her, she would give him what had stunned him. He helped arrange for her to be admitted to a capital temple for treatment, even though he considers them parasites. A generous and merciful aristocrat in public who received them with their mother. In fact, Malone considered them saboteurs. The man's ex-wife came to them and told them that she had been forced to divorce him because of her. And even now, he doesn't love her or her daughter. That's why she considered this woman a villain. Julia, who could not bear Josephine's bullying, lost consciousness. This surprised everyone so much that they even called a doctor. But Julia was ill for 2 months. Robelia fell asleep on the move because she did not leave her mother's bedside. Suddenly, her mother said something to her, and the girl immediately woke up and was very glad that her mother had woken up. Julia, I asked my daughter why this happened to them, because she just wanted a quiet life for her daughter. Everything she wished for did not come true, and after that, the woman began to die. She talked about her daughter, that she believed in her, and Robelia asked her mother not to talk anymore because she was getting worse. Julia began to ask her daughter for forgiveness, and she burst into tears, begging her mother not to talk. The woman did not understand at all where she had gone wrong, and after these words, she died. Robelia cried very loudly and did not understand why this was happening to them and what they had done wrong. Shocked by her mother's death, Robelia fainted, and then she learned about the existence of the original collection of secrets of this world. Now she knew the full reason why her mother died. All her suffering had been useless. Things belonging to her were stolen. Then she woke up and wondered how long she had been unconscious. Robelia didn't quite understand where her mother was because there was no one on the bed. Malone entered the room and said that if she had woken up, he wanted to tell her that her mother had been cremated. They could not bury her with her family because she was involved in unholy deeds. Robelia was absolutely horrified and couldn't understand what he was doing. He took everything that belonged to her. Suddenly, her mother appeared to her and asked her to take revenge. Then the girl heard someone's voice. Perhaps it was just her imagination asking her to take revenge, and then no one would leave her again. Mom asked her not to give away anything that was rightfully hers. Robelia decided that she would definitely take revenge, and then everything would return to its place. Robelia lay unconscious for 4 days, and then great magic appeared to her. It was definitely gypsy magic. When they had already left the city, she saw her mother casting a spell to strangle a chicken. She never told the girl about gypsies or about magic, but when in a dream she saw her with her own eyes, gypsy blood boiled in her veins, and Robelia understood everything instinctively. The story in this book is true. The book's main character was named Aina Milan's daughter and Robelia's cousin, and Robelia was the villain. She hated Aina because she thought Milan and Josephine loved her with all their hearts. She mocked her in every possible way, but the worst thing was that she even used gypsy blood to cast a curse on her. Aina, tortured by Robelia, met the protagonist. They united against Robelia, and after all the events, they even inherited Malone's enormous fortune. In this story, Robelia was the villain, because it was written from Aina's point of view. But if it had been written by Robelia, it would have been completely different. Mom never told anyone about Milan's evil plans, nor that she was a real child of the Effalentia family. Robelia was too young to understand. Without this knowledge, she would have followed written history, but not now. Everything will change, and she will take revenge on Malone. And to do this, she needs to prove that she is part of the Effalentia family. The real birth certificate has already been destroyed by Malone, but there's something he doesn't know about. It's the baptismal document. She doesn't know where to look for him. Even in the book, he is mentioned only in passing, but she decided that she is going to him. And even if she becomes part of the family, she will be destroyed before she can do anything. So she needs an accomplice, someone who can protect her. Someone who would be suitable for this role already exists. 3 years ago, a fencing masters tournament was held. Aina asked her sister how everything was going and whether it was fun there, and also asked her to come to her more often. This girl is the daughter of a gypsy, and she came here without any shame. Forcing an aristocrat to corner an opponent and force him to surrender was very disrespectful, and no one understood how he could do such a thing. Now everyone knew the rumors of his ruthlessness were true. The rival was dead. Jade Parado, the head of the duchy. In the original, he was opposed to the protagonist's policies and ideology. He's another villain. Robelia isn't sure she can consider him an ally. She remembered the contents of the book, no longer needed a draft, but she decided to at least try, since she had nothing to lose anyway. The Duke of Parado's estate, an illegitimate daughter of the Effalentia family, has arrived. She used a letter from Malone as a pretext to meet the Duke. She had to lie. While no one will suspect anything, she is constantly at the beck and call of noble families. The Duke turned to her and said that she had brought a letter from Count Effalentius, red and cold like blood and ice. His eyes, even under this suit, one can feel his barbaric nature. The same look she'd seen at 15. The Duke asked where it was and what she needed. The girl asked to sit down. The Duke said she could do as she pleased, and that was where it would all begin. She said the letter delivery was a lie. The Duke wasn't surprised. He wouldn't have entrusted a letter to a servant's daughter. The girl remarked that he'd let her into the house anyway, which meant he wanted to hear her out. That's right. He was just curious why his illegitimate daughter and family would come to him and even lie for fear of being caught. Robelia announced that she was there to make a deal with the Duke. The Duke remarked that he didn't think she had anything for him, but he agreed to listen to her and then decided to ask what she wanted. He's also curious about what she can give him in return. Robelia has heard that the Duke of Parado's family supports young people with promising futures, and she wants to be one of them. The Duke had only heard about her that she was weak and cowardly, but something didn't seem right. Robelia told him that rumors were just rumors. She had to be on guard and pretend, but after reading the book and learning the truth, there was no longer any reason for such behavior. But the rumors are not so exaggerated. If you remember how she lost consciousness at a fencing tournament, the girl couldn't understand how he knew about this. The Duke noted that she had caused quite a stir, and immediately after his victory, the lady forgot her hat and the sun was too strong. The Duke nevertheless decided to agree with her. Then he wants to talk about what she can give him. Robelia said she could solve his biggest problem. It's independence from the royal family. The Duke told her not to say she could return his relics, because everyone thinks he's only with them and dreams of it. But that's a lie. The lady said that she knew about it, and this surprised the gentleman. He asked again, and she confirmed it once again. And then Robelia said that, most of all, the Duke wanted to get rid of the curse of distant lands. At that very moment, the Duke took out his sword and put it to the woman's throat. He asked in horror who had told Robelia about this. He was shocked, and that was great. The Duke was surprised to see her smiling. The lady assumed he was afraid to fall asleep at night. because he's afraid the witch will come and devour him. In the past, obeying the emperor's orders, he led the attack. But he was attacked by Temer, who commanded magical creatures, and he lost his mind in that battle, a terrible curse that makes you cease to be human. He controls himself only by willpower. Well, when he picks up a sword, he goes into a rage, just like in a fencing tournament. Robelia could break the curse. The Duke couldn't understand how she would do it. The girl said that she gains strength when he sleeps. There is one aromatic product that will give him deep sleep. It is an excellent product, but the effect is temporary. The Duke will understand everything once he uses it. Jade asked if she was saying she wanted his support. Well, that's not an answer, and he needs to know why she needs his help. The lady wants to start a business no matter what, she just needs income to get her Ephelentia surname back. Jade was surprised when he heard that she wanted it back and realized that the rumors were not true. When the master is convinced of the truth of her words, he can call her at any time. Ephelentia Estate. The girl stood behind a tree and listened to the maids' conversations. They were talking about Lady Aina planning to have a tea party, and that meant they had even more work to do. She gave away the oil, now all that's left is to wait. Suddenly, as she sat down, she heard someone say her name. It was Malone asking where she had been. The gentleman believed that Robelia thought that he would not notice the disappearance since it was long past time for afternoon tea. Malon had told her to stay at the estate so many times that she couldn't count the number of times. The girl said she went to church to pray. Malone sighed because she had gone there again. He thought she was missing her mother when she visited Yulia's remains. It was no coincidence that she stopped there on her way home. The gentleman said that he would not be able to help if something happened to her outside the estates. Therefore, she must obey and not go there so often, because he is her guardian, and he hopes that she will not give him reasons to worry. Robelia agreed with him and said she'd remember. Then she ran into her room. It was very difficult for her to restrain herself and not do anything to him. Robelia wanted to stab him to death, but he didn't deserve such an easy fate, because she will make him pay for everything at any cost and by any means. The maid knocked on Robelia's door and was very angry with her because she had been standing there and knocking for an eternity. The girl did not understand at all why she came so early, and the maid said that she should go to the main room. Because Aina's people called her Robelia, immediately got ready and came to her. The girl was very happy to see her sister. She heard that Robelia had gone to church yesterday. She assumed it was because of Yulia. Aina was thinking about how to please her. So today, she asked her to do her a beautiful makeover and spent the evening with her. The maid told the lady it was time for them to go. Aina was surprised that he had already arrived. At the last reception, the lady dropped her handkerchief. It seems he decided to return it to her. Aina asked the maids to pick out a suitable outfit for her sister. Come to think of it, Aina drops her scarves in front of men with enviable frequency variants, often do this to aristocrats who have impressed them. And then, he always comes back with a scarf and a gift to live up to expectations. Well, Aina is so nervous for the first time. She was worried that her makeup might be too bright. So I'm really curious to see who's already arrived. Considering that she gathered all the servants, it is unlikely that she is an ordinary aristocrat. Robelia was surprised to see the guest. Aina greeted the gentleman with a smile, assuming he was from the Duke of Parado's estate. The lady helped that he simply came to return the scarf. The man was in complete shock when he heard her. Aina was glad they'd brought a gift, too. Last time she'd made a big mistake dropping her handkerchief at the royal banquet and starting to say how sweet Duke Parado was. They had also traveled a long way. The man apologized to the lady and said he had come to see Miss Robelia Ephentia. His name is Joachim Jereminas. He has come to Miss Robelia on the orders of his lord, the Duke of Parado. Everyone was shocked along with you that he didn't come to Miss War. The gentleman said it looked like it. Aina believed the gentleman was mistaken. Then she presented Robelia to him and asked if he was sure he should come to her. The gentleman confirmed that his duke had clearly told Miss Robelia he had sent her an invitation and a gift. If Miss Robelia doesn't mind, he's waiting for her at the Alanchik to express his gratitude. Robelia thought it looked like he had used the remedy, in addition to the words you were told, that they sent her the famous Bloomby perfume, and they say that it is almost impossible to buy. Robelia agreed, but Aina tried to stop her. Then a woman approached her and asked if she was leaving without telling anyone. It was Aina's mother. She heard everything, and it was very kind of the Duke, but she's worried. Man, I was surprised with you that she was worried, and the woman said that Robelia was still weak. She lost consciousness the other day and was having a hard time dealing with the death of her mother. Jeremias overheard the maids talking about how she was jealous again and would not let Robelia go even if she wanted to. The lady said that she was afraid, and if she went out too often, she would tie her up again, so today she would stay at the estate, especially since her daughter wanted to chat with her, and they had just prepared tea and cakes. Aina said that this was excellent, and so she did. And the woman also really wanted to hear the story of how Robelia met the Duke of Parado. The gentleman could not even imagine this. He met her in the temple yesterday and did not expect that something like this would happen. Miss Robelia had helped him greatly, and the Duke wanted to repay her. He said he wanted to see her at any cost. If the master returns with such news, his Duke will be very disappointed. Well, the most important thing is that the Duke changed his plans for this lunch. The maids noticed that he even sent a gift, so it was best for her not to stir up unnecessary rumors by refusing. Malone, moreover, had ordered her not to create grounds for gossip since she didn't want to hear their name trampled on. Josephine said it was an accident that Julia had suddenly fallen and that it just happened. But the gentleman wouldn't hear any excuses. Julia is likely to die soon, so they will solve this problem quietly. And if Josephine continues to spread rumors, she must be prepared for the consequences. Josephine asked Robelia to return for dinner, and then the girl went with the gentleman. Malone was away today, so leaving the estate wasn't that difficult. She understood that she should hand over the problems when she returned, and Malone would also be at the estate. Robelia has already gotten used to it, but she is interested in what kind of person he is. The man apologized to her, but Robelia didn't quite understand what the matter was. He asked if she was okay, because he thought she was upset about what happened. The man asked if Robelia was okay. Then he led her in that direction. Miss Robelia is from the house of Count Ephalentius. She's illegitimate, but even so, they're too cruel. She was tired and wanted his help, but the girl did not react in any way and silently looked at the floor. The gentleman didn't know if it was his fault, but if the rumors were true, the lady simply said it wasn't his business. The gentleman apologized for saying too much, but Miss Robelia said that everything was fine. She also asked that she take her away quickly. Robelia didn't believe in selfless kindness. People are evil and greedy, that's their nature. Greed makes people forget about morality and does terrible things. You can't trust those you haven't personally verified. There was no one she could trust next to her, and there won't be any in the future either. The Duke greeted the lady with a smile and said that he had been waiting so she could come in and change seats. He also ordered everyone to leave them alone. The master said she didn't have to be shy, but he didn't know what she liked. Robelia thought it was too pompous since it was just lunch. The Duke decided to ask what the secret of the aromatic sleeping pill was, because since he was cursed, this was the first night without nightmares. And Robelia also says it's only temporary. The lady confirmed that this is indeed the case. For a complete cure, she needed to enter the Duke's dreams. The Duke smiled and asked if this was just another nonsense about how someone else's magic could help find the answer. The curse could only be broken by the same kind of magic, and they might try. Well, for now, this is enough at the moment. No one is able to weaken the curse. The Duke is not opposed to the deal, but it's not a very good one. This greatly surprised the lady. She says she wants to open a business to join the Ephalentia family. To do that, she'll have to expand it considerably. She'll be able to hide her identity at first, but as her business grows, everything will become clear. And then she'll become a target for the aristocracy. Of course, this also applies to the Ephalentia family, but she's ready for this, and that's why she needs a sponsor. The Duke said it wasn't suitable, and he had a better option. Malone was stunned when he heard that Robelia had received an invitation from the Duke. She said he sent for her straight here. The gentleman was shocked that his wife just up and let her go. That's true, but she only did it because he asked her to stop causing problems. If she hadn't let her go, rumors would have spread. Robelia may have received the temple's support. The Count couldn't believe it, and didn't even know how Robelia could help the Duke in this universe. This can't be true, Yulia told Robelia before she died. Malon must find out what she knows. The maid informed Sir that Robelia had returned. It was just in time, so he asked her to tell him to come to the library immediately. The maid informed her that she had not come alone, but that the Duke of Parado was also here. All the maids were shocked, wondering if Parado had actually seen the Duke. But for some reason, he was with Robelia. It is a great honor to see him here. The Count apologizes for not having greeted him properly, because his language was a surprise to them. Jade informed him that such trifles did not bother him, and the Count felt relieved. While Malon was away, he invited Rebelia to his estate. In fact, this is the reason for the Count's visit. He wants to take Rebelia into his home. The Count said that he would not be able to accept his offer, after which the Duke inquired why Malone said he'd rather know why the Duke had decided to take her in the first place. The woman is simple. The Duke saw Rebelia in the temple and fell in love at first sight. Then, he proposed a marriage of convenience to her, with the story that they had accidentally met in a temple and fallen head over heels in love, and he secretly took her to himself. Rebelia said he should hold his horses because he was so stupid as to believe such nonsense. The Duke was sure that he would believe it because he knew Jade Parado's reputation, so the lady agreed. It was very strange to Rebelia that she agreed so easily. She also had the same idea, instead of breaking the curse, to enter into an arranged marriage for 3 years. Well, now she is just a commoner, an illegitimate child, which everyone knows very well. Aristocrats care about origins. They will never accept her. The Duke waited for his lady's answer, so she agreed, and they decided to enter into a marriage contract. They had a wonderful time together that day, and with every second, his feelings for Rebelia grew stronger, and he wanted to do everything possible for her. Rebelia hadn't even expected him to play so well. Malone apologized and said he'd heard rumors about him. Apparently, there wasn't a single person left who hadn't heard about it. There are always groups of girls hovering around the Duke, and he changes them like gloves. A famous heartbreaker, a true playboy. He is a very dissolute man. Holds on to trying in every way to escape the pressure from his family to get married. Rebelia trusted him and follows his lead, but she's terrified that sooner or later everything will change. Malon said they weren't related by blood. She was still a child, loved with all his heart. If something happens to her, he doesn't even know how he'll look his brother in the eye after death. He'll call out to his brother. He must take care of this child with all his might. Malon was sure that the Duke could not continue to be stubborn after these words. He decided to lock her up when the Duke left, so that she wouldn't even think about escaping. The Duke asked how he would feel about becoming her patron. He knows that Parado supports teenagers with a promising future. Jade will add Rebelia to this list and write her a letter of recommendation that will allow her to enter the academy. If Uncle really wants the best for her, then that would be genuine concern. It worked. Malone would never have let her marry him for love. He deliberately provoked Malone and declared himself her patron. Jade came up with this plan. Now he can't refuse, because he previously said that he must take care of this child with all his might. However, she needs to be completely sure Malone is worried whether she knows the truth or not. To finally remove suspicion and anxiety is what he wants, so she will answer this question. Rebelia knelt before the Count and said she would remain in Ephalentius's house. The Duke was simply horrified and asked what she was saying. When she and her mother had nowhere to go, it was the master who took them in, so she asks for forgiveness for causing such a commotion. If the master does not allow it, then she will sever all ties with the Duke of Parado. The Duke didn't expect things to turn out this way, and next time, she should warn him about it. Rebelia promised to try and improve over time. They dealt with the Count, and now she needs to enter the academy. Usually, female students live in a dormitory, but if she goes to meet someone, she doesn't have to spend the night there, so she could leave before nightfall and head to his estate. Jade had completely forgotten she had no luggage, so he'd send someone to pick it up later. Rebelia said there was no need. She was carrying her mother's favorite pendant, which she never parted with. Everything she needed was already with her, so the Duke decided to discuss further actions. If she wants a business on the level of the Ephentia family, she'll need serious investment. The Duke will help her initially, but that doesn't mean she can use his money forever. The Ephelentia family's business consists of 4 parts. The first is gold and precious stone mining. The second is rail transport through the industrial capital of the empire. The third is income from renting houses and land owned by the family. And the fourth is related to the purchase and sale of bonds. It will be difficult to destroy all 4 parts, and the Duke is not interested in this. He will not give much money. The Duke decided to find out where she intended to raise money for her business. Rebelia said she would find an investor, and that investor will be Her Highness the Queen. The Duke was very surprised. And then I decided to ask again if he was telling the truth about the Queen, because it couldn't be so. Rebelia agreed that it wasn't that simple. This path would allow her to gain not only money, but also influence, but it was more difficult than the others. That's why the Duke is interesting, why there is not a drop of doubt in her gaze. The Duke asked if she would promise him something. If she agreed, she would gain his trust. You want her to devote herself entirely to him. It's a pity, but she doesn't need that. Rebellia can rely on this, and since this is, so the Duke suggested that she try another way. She must not betray him, and if she does, she must be sure that she will not see life. Rebellia noted that while they might not trust each other, they were on the same path, so there was no need to worry so much. The knight asked the lady if he could help her, and waited for her to extend her hand to him. Rebellia was sure that it was normal for me to fall on my knees in front of her for knights. This was the norm, but still it was strange. Well, the Duke asked to be allowed to do it. He said Rebellia couldn't even imagine how happy he was to be with her. The girl remembered that they were playing lovers after all, so she reciprocated his feelings. Rebellia told him that she was also happy, and this made the Duke very surprised. And then he suggested they go inside. The butler was very glad to see him. He was Geralt, the estate's head butler. This maid will be Lady Rebellia's personal servant. If she's in any trouble, she can inform him personally. The Duke was shocked that she could have such an expression on her face. The maids wondered if they'd seen the Duke's reaction, as he never took his eyes off her. It was such a piercing gaze. One of the maids decided they were about to break up and weren't even worth paying attention to. It's completely unclear why she did it. Perhaps this woman was some celebrity. Meanwhile, the butler led her into the room and wished her a good rest. She's the footman's daughter, or stepdaughter. They spoke so loudly, and the lady knew the butler could hear, but she continued to pretend they didn't notice. The maids thought that this woman could disfigure the Duke's face, and when the mistress came in, they immediately said that they were just cleaning here. Rebellia said that she was going to have dinner with the Duke, so she asked for help in preparing it. Of course they didn't mind. You can't say it, but it's obvious what everyone is thinking. Rebellia isn't going to play the good girl in front of him, and she won't worry about trifles. The maid was horrified that she'd broken such an expensive item. She didn't even know where she'd go if she was fired. The mistress said she had had enough, and the maid tried to argue with her. Rebellia said she just wanted to be alone. The maid said the mistress could call them if she needed anything. It seemed they made a terrible first impression, and she definitely heard everything. The mistress said that if the maid is worried about a broken cup, she can say that the mistress broke it. Now Rebellia will live in a dormitory. Aina asked her father why. She believed it had something to do with the Duke of Parado's arrival. Everything had already been decided, so he was asking his daughter to simply forget about it all. This girl took everything from her, so Aina doesn't understand at all how she can forget about it. She suddenly left to study, and this happened immediately after meeting with the Duke of Parado. The girl didn't understand at all why the Duke had invited her, and why everything was like this. Why all this was happening to her, of all people. Rebellia abandoned her without a word, and she couldn't understand why. As the sun was setting, the light dinner for two was coming to an end. The Duke's chambers were already ready. The gentleman announced that he would be leaving soon. Afterwards, he remembered that he wanted to tell the butler that Lady Rebellia was staying with him that night, so he had to prepare everything Geralt understood. The maids will be shocked and ask you if this is true, and if the Duke really gave such an order, because such a thing has never happened. The butler ordered them to stop chatting and get to cooking orders that hadn't been given before. After lengthy preparations, the lady was already at the Duke's Rebellia, apologized for the wait. He didn't suggest she start treatment today. Everything was as she'd expected, straight to the point. The Duke was suffering from a curse, and a solution was found. She said she needed to penetrate his dreams, and this was only possible at night. Rebellia said that no one would suspect anything if he told the servants that they would spend the night together. Jade decided to do just that, and said they would meet in his room when it was ready. When she had already arrived, the Duke decided to ask what he should do. Jade asked if he'd need the oil. Rebellia said it wasn't necessary, but they used the scent to help him fall asleep faster. She asked the Duke to make himself comfortable, and using magic, she would penetrate his dreams. Judging by his look, he doesn't believe the main character. It's hard to talk when it comes to such things. Rebellia said that she was already starting, and when he fell asleep, then she would fall asleep too and find herself in his dreams. After this, the lady took him by the hand, and the man immediately came to his senses and asked what she was doing. Physical contact is required for Rebellia to peer into his dream, and here too the spell mark is needed. In the original, it was Aina, not her who broke the curse. Aina accidentally discovered how to destroy it. With the innocence and light typical of the protagonist, she purified Jade's heart. Well, because the cure was delayed, the curse got out of control and the Duke died. Perhaps he died because of Ina. After all, Jade Parado was a villain, and his existence could have prevented a happy ending. This is Jade Parado's dream. The maids said the Duke's food was ready, and they could take it. Rebellia didn't think she would end up in the kitchen, but now she gets to know the Duke the natural way. She asked that the horn start to stop if she was heading to the Duke's quarters, because she wanted to help her. The girl was simply delighted and said that she had been afraid to approach the Duke lately. 4 years ago, he was different. 4 years after the onset of symptoms, this was before he moved to the capital. They are now in the northern county. The key moment is hidden in this dream at 2:40. She must find and erase the traces of the curse scattered throughout his subconscious, in the very depths of memory, and very soon it will emerge. It's only 2 a.m. now. I need to find an excuse to come back here later. The gentleman remarked that he hadn't seen her before, so he assumed it was a new maid. Robelia was shocked that he remembered the faces of all the servants, even in his dreams. The Duke's dreams are very strange, but Robelia said that this is true and she only got a job at the estate yesterday. Later, he promised to ask the headmaid, and also asked her to put away his books. He will stay in the office. The headmaid said that she will bring food and clean up. This is her chance, and she will stay here and just wait for the key moment. It's almost time. The servant brought him reports on the road construction, which would take place very soon. It was 2:40, and something started happening to the Duke. Even the servant was frightened, and Robelia realized the curse was intensifying. The Duke had already kicked everyone out of his room a minute earlier and told them not to show their faces to him again. Everyone reacts as if this isn't the first time they've encountered this. And of course, the curse has been with him for 4 years already. All they could do was go away and leave him alone. The Duke turned and took the ball, a curse mark right on his neck. The sword is a fake, but even such a one will be a formidable weapon in his hands. This needs to be done quickly, so she doesn't understand what to do, because if she wants to erase it, she needs to get closer. She realized that she had seized the moment, but the Duke saw her and asked if she had heard him poorly when he told her to get out. Then she had to disappear immediately. He was very angry and shouted at her to get lost. If she didn't want to get hurt, she had to leave here right now. Robelia told the gentleman that everything was fine. He had been suffering greatly since he became Duke, and no one knew about the curse. Everyone only hears the noise from the Duke's office, but quietly passes by and does not come closer to him. These attacks haunt him for years. The girl said he couldn't hurt her with this sword. Jade smiled and said that she was not the first, someone says, because she thinks that it will be different with her, but it will still be as it should be. Robelia said that not this time, only now should he trust her. He's afraid of hurting someone. We are too. The maid reached for his neck and smeared it with blood. Afterwards, the Duke sat down, and Robelia asked if he was okay. The gentleman asked what had happened since he remembered the incense. The girl said it was still in his dream. Robelia erased the curse's mark. The Duke believed he was finished, but he couldn't understand why he was still sleeping. Robelia needs to help him wake up, just like she helped him fall asleep. Jade said he trusted her, and that was it. She was the one who reached out to him. The Duke laughed at her pretending to be a servant, and remarked that it was quite plausible. Robelia thought he was in shock, because even some jokes would be omitted. He hadn't seen this office for 6 months. Robelia realized that something like this had never happened to him before, so she told him that it was time to return to reality. She asked the gentleman to take her hand. This is somewhere to leave the dream. They are not lovers. Holding hands is rather awkward. Robelia assured the gentleman that this was a necessity. The slightest mistake would mean that they would not get out of here. Then the gentleman apologized and extended his hand to her. This would happen again later. Jade hoped he'd recognize her from the start. Next time, Robelia noted that she wasn't so sure. Now he must imagine his body floating on the surface of the water. The Duke breathes in the fresh air. But suddenly, he notices someone and asks who it is. These aren't his memories after all. The lady asked him not to even pay attention to them. But the gentleman can't just stand there and look at this child. Robelia reiterated that one mistake, and everything would be for nothing, so they just shouldn't pay attention to it. The Duke must focus on returning to reality, and finally, the Duke is already awake. Jade's body felt very light. The lady asked how he felt. Everything is even better than he would have liked. The body is very light, and now it is easier to control the power of magical beasts. He offered to continue tomorrow, but the lady refused, claiming the problem was space. The traces of the curse had vanished. so his subconscious created a void. So they needed to wait until it filled up. Jade decided to ask if Rebellia was okay. Today she used magic for the first time, so she said that everything was fine, and she felt as usual. She also asked to forgive her and wanted to leave, but the Duke asked her to wait. Today he plans to go to college and decide on his admission, so it would be better for her to rest if she is tired. Rebellia assured the gentleman that she was fine. He tried to object, but the lady interrupted him and said that everything was fine, and there was no need to worry. The Duke spent the whole night with her, so the maid is sure they will dine together. Another maid was shocked that the Duke had fallen in love. Another girl advised them to be quiet and not make the same mistake twice. But maid, I wasn't going to say anything bad. They informed Miss that the Duke was waiting for her. They came to help her get ready for dinner. The lady said that they could come in, and they were shocked when they saw the lady's face. The lady's face looks like a rotten onion. It's better not to say that out loud. So the maids apologized for the inconvenience and said that they could not let her go like that. After all the preparations, she looks even more sick. The maids apologized, but they meant well. One of the maids asked permission to send the makeup. Rebellia simply told them that everything was fine and that they couldn't keep the Duke waiting any longer. They don't quite understand why she's like this. Rebellia didn't expect to be so pale. Entering sleep takes a lot more energy than you might think. Rebellia was there, fully conscious, so she did not rest all night. And suddenly, someone called out to her. It was Jeremias. The man looked very surprised at her expression and assumed something had happened to her during the night. The knight asked if there were any problems in the estate or if the maids were doing their work carelessly. The lady said no, and they're very nice to her here. There's no torture or abuse, so it'll do. The maid simply doesn't care, as if she were a girl who will soon be thrown out. Well, that's even better. Rebellia bowed to the knight and announced that she had to go, as the Duke was waiting for her in the dining room. Jeremias asked the lady to tell him if anything happened, because he wanted to protect her. The lady thought it was knightly etiquette, and asked why he had to go so far, since she was not the one he needed to protect. The man said that knights do not choose who to protect, because they help everyone who needs it. Rebellia was grateful for his words. She didn't need help, and she wouldn't ask him for it, because she might start relying on a person if she gets used to it, so she decided to go quickly. Even if his kindness is sincere, it will be an obstacle on the path to revenge. Rebellia would never allow herself to be betrayed. The Duke had expected her to look tired. It was the third time, so the lady was shocked that things were so bad. She told him that breaking the curse would put so much pressure on her. Rebellia simply remained conscious all night, even though she was asleep. The Duke didn't think it would harm her so much, so he was even a little upset. To liven up the conversation, he decided to ask if the room was suitable for her, and the lady replied that it suited her perfectly. The gentleman said that she could tell Gerald if she wanted to buy anything else, and she would also be sent to the eastern building of the academy. Rebellia, he will be for you. The gentleman said that the academy is divided into eastern, western, and northern, and she will be in the eastern one. Many of Parado's close associates are there. He'll be much more at ease that way, and Alain Legratina's half-brother is also there. Alain Legratine is a minor character in the original story. He fought around Aina, the second son of a count owner of the famous Legratina department store. Unlike the loving protagonist, Alan is a mercantile man, hungry for Effalentia's money. Well, she'll need him, and that's fortunate. Perhaps she'll be able to meet him through his half-brother. Since the lady had already finished eating, the Duke suggested she go. Rebellia didn't mind at all. The gentleman remarked that the academy was even more beautiful than the estate. Rebellia looked as if she had seen something magical. The lady had been to the Duke's estate many times before, but this was her first time at the academy. She needed to get used to it to be prepared for the future. The gentleman understood her and then suggested she go and register. That's where it all begins. The Duke asked to take the documents the lady had signed. The admissions process is moving very quickly. In addition to the application for study permission to spend the night outside the academy is required. The Duke's smile disappeared because it did not bode well. The woman said it was nothing, and she would take care of it. The Duke was grateful to the professor and said goodbye until their next meeting. Rebellia hoped to meet her half-brother Alain if she stayed, but she was unlikely to spend the night there at all. The Duke turned to her in a whisper and said that she could not stay here longer than 2 days, because they didn't have a minute to spare. He was too close. Jade suggested that she go home quickly and discuss the business plan. He also offered to walk hand in hand, at least to the carriage. Rebellia was surprised, because no one could see them. There was a restroom near the exit, so caution wouldn't hurt. He's the most famous lover in town, and that would be to their advantage. Jade asked the girl if she probably wanted to become a representative of the Imperial Palace. This is exactly what Rebelia wanted, and it's actually a good start, and also modern. We were just looking for someone for this position, but the competition will be fierce. A palace representative is a person who manages the royal property and also manages income and expenses. This post was invented by aristocrats who did not want to waste their time on such things. The royal family was good at investing, but its members were exceptional people. They are elected regardless of status and past. This is an excellent opportunity to make a leap from the very bottom. Her Majesty comes from the Millix family, which is not inferior to the Ephelentia family. If she manages to become the Queen's representative, then a decent amount of capital is guaranteed. The Duke asked if she was confident she could achieve this. He had heard that the Count was also eyeing the post. From his original word, Ina became the palace representative. She knew nothing about investing, but Milan bribed his daughter to take this post. He donated a fortune to the Queen's event. Of course, he got nothing for it. They could control the Inu and took advantage of this more and more. The Empress got hers. The Inu got the post of representative. Rebelia believed there was no need to worry about Count Alentia. He didn't know what the Queen wanted. The Duke decided to ask what this Queen wanted. Rebelia said she needed a blue diamond. Her Majesty had been looking for this thing for many years. The Duke was shocked because this was another jewel of which she had in abundance. Well, this diamond is special. The thing is, the Queen has a secret known only to a very select circle of people. When she was young, she failed the rigorous etiquette training and made a mistake at the debutante ball. Somehow she found her way into Yegor's house and was overcome with passion. She became a gambler, mired in debts she couldn't repay. She even sold the diamond to her mother to pay them off. After her death, the Empress regretted what she had done and wanted to return it. Well, I couldn't act because I was afraid that my past would come out. The blue diamond is the Queen's weakness, and she will pay attention to it if you bring it. The representative is also responsible for acquiring those things that the crown would like to have. If she manages to obtain it, it will definitely distinguish her in the eyes of the Queen. But the Duke didn't know where the diamond was, so he decided to ask Rebelia knew where he could buy it. The Duke did not understand at all where she got such valuable information, because she was saying very important things, so he was very curious about how she knew about them. Rebelia couldn't say for sure, so she suggested they were a gift from heaven so she could take revenge. There is no need to worry about the price, because the shop owner will be happy to sell the jewelry. When they asked here who the owner was, Rebelia said that it was the second son of the Legretina family, Alain Legretina. The Duke was very surprised. After all this, man was definitely not the type to sell cheaply. Rebelia decided to become friends with his stepbrother, so she has a good chance of meeting the store owner himself. The Duke stopped her and said that Alan had to go to the opera the next day. The lady was surprised and asked again. Jade was talking about the Sergo Opera House. It's a very popular place, people come there to make friends. Alan will definitely show up there. Then everything will be much easier. Rebelia said she might need the Duke's things. She also asked the gentleman if he would go on a date with her. The maid told the lady that she heard that she had a date today. They'll be very happy to help her get ready. Rebelia was against it and agreed with them. The maid promised that this time she would look her best, and they would not repeat their past mistakes. So the lady can trust them. Rebelia didn't quite want to hear it, but she agreed anyway. Now they work more skillfully. Well, it's clear where all these dresses and jewelry came from. Rebelia assumed they were all belonging to the Duke's ex-girlfriends. Finally, the maids have finished, so the mistress can look in the mirror. The dress fits perfectly, so the lady decided to ask where it was from, because it fits as if it was made for her. The maids reported that it was a gift from the Duke for Lady Rebelia. Indeed, it had been sewn just yesterday, and a little later, the rest of the clothes will arrive. And also, the lady really suits blue, and it's very good that they changed the dress. Rebelia looks great, absolutely beautiful. Everyone at the opera house will be looking at her. The girl was shocked when they told her she was beautiful. Rebelia only heard that she had a seductive face. Well, she decided not to think about it. The Duke was already waiting for her and noticed that she was late, so he wondered why. Rebelia apologized for being late and said that they could go now. The Duke looked at her in such a way that the lady began to ask if everything was okay with her and began to think that she had overdone it with her makeup. Jade said that wasn't true because they were going out in public and the makeup was just right. The Duke also wanted to say something. Then the lady came closer to him and asked him what he wanted to tell her. The gentleman turned around and said that the carriage was waiting and then offered her his hand. On the way to the opera house, Robelia told the Duke how to get the blue diamond. Now the Duke understood everything and said that in that case, they needed to make a deal with him as quickly as possible. But the gentleman is not sure that everything will be so simple because this man is a merchant. Robelia noted that they would manage somehow, and she was confident that they would be able to convince the merchant. Jade noted that Alan had recently acquired a reputation for not being the most pleasant person, so it was better not to talk to him about trifles, but only about business. Robelia noticed that the Duke was not himself today, and that something was wrong with him. The Surga Opera House. The women were delighted to see the always handsome Jade. He has such an aura. So many people immediately ran up to him and asked him how he was getting on. Many hadn't seen him for a long time. I also asked who this girl was, and they assumed it was Robelia Effalentia, and what a beautiful dress she was wearing. All the men were enchanted, and one of the girls heard that she was the daughter of a gypsy. Robelia noted that the atmosphere was still the same. Nothing had changed, and they weren't even aware of the rumors yet. The lady told the Duke that his servants were dressed like aristocrats. They also asked Aina what had happened. Aina had no idea what Robelia was doing here. She'd said she was going to the academy. She left without a word, and now she's doing this. She treated her well. The girl told her to hold the notes more carefully because she covered them with her fingers and wanted to ruin her performance. Aina approached her and said that her sister did not mean anything in this way, but just like that. So she asked for forgiveness. The girl told her that she was just a servant and did not understand how she could call her her sister. It's simply astonishing that Sir Effalentia would care for an illegitimate child. Aina was also very kind. She brought her here. It's not so easy to get a gypsy's daughter to a concert. But Aina believed that Robelia was her doll, so she had no right to do this. The girl told Aina that this was some kind of mistake, so they should go back. But for some reason, she turned away. Then Alan approached her. Robelia was delighted to see him. The gentleman thought that Aina was tired, so he offered to bring her a light drink. The lady was grateful to him, and he was surprised when he saw Miss Robelia in front of him. Alan said they hadn't seen each other for quite some time. The girl remarked that it had been a very long time since they had seen each other. The best supporting character is Alain Legretain. He assumed she was a maid because her friend Aina told him so. As far as Robelia remembers, this man was originally respectful to her. Although he may appear friendly, it is only a mask. He approached her in order to appropriate Effalentius's property. So girls need to be careful because he's very dangerous. Alain said they really hadn't seen each other for ages. He hadn't seen her near Anna in a while either, so he thought something might have happened. Suddenly, the girl grabbed her hand. Aina asked Robelia to talk for a bit alone. When they were alone, she began asking why she was there since she had left for the academy. Robelia came to see the opera. Meanwhile, the girl was telling everyone to look in that direction because Aina and her maid were there. Aina was surprised and lowered her eyes because her friends were here and Aina was her servant. Everyone knows this, and if they see it, it's unclear what they will think of her. Robelia was shocked that she was such a toy to her, but she didn't care because she needed connections to own a business. Robelia noted that they hadn't seen each other since she left home. So I decided to ask the lady how she was doing. Her friends were as shocked as you were that this girl was no longer a servant. If she left the house, then they are no longer connected. They started asking Aina what was going on. The maid abandoned her. The Duke was delighted when he met Robelia and immediately offered her a seat, and the lady did not refuse. The guests do not understand at all what is happening and why the Duke is accompanying her. Perhaps they are together. Aina couldn't stand it, so she shouted that she lent the maid to the Duke of Parado because he said he needed a maid. Well, they didn't understand at all why the Duke was hanging around with her, so much so they weren't sure that Aina was telling the truth. Robelia didn't quite understand why she was burying her head in the sand. She needed to clarify the situation. The Duke asked Miss Aina what this meant, because she said that Miss Robelia was serving him. Her father officially gave his consent for Robelia to date him. Aina was completely shocked when she heard the news. Jade asked her to spread false rumors. Robelia is an illegitimate child taken in by Count Effalentia. He loves her so much. She's a child after all. The Duke returned and turned to Viscount Temper and told him to keep his mouth shut. He doesn't care what they say about him, but no one else will honor Miss Robelia. He will prevent this by any means necessary. Everyone knows Jade Parado never loved anyone. He dated women to escape family pressure. If girls confessed their love to him, he most often agreed to a relationship, but never went beyond the boundaries he set. He gave jewelry to his beloved, but only for show, and not from sincere motives. It was the same with going out in public. He was polite, but without unnecessary feelings. It was the same with her. The woman who dreamed of his love was abandoned. But he stood up for Rebellia, thereby stirring up society. The Duke sided with Rebellia. Now Aina understands why he took her for himself. The Duke asked the girl why he lied so brazenly. Aina said with a trembling voice that it was for his own good, but the Duke frowned and said that was unlikely. She only needs to say that she is not a suitable match for Duke the Fio, that she wanted the good of the House of Parado, and then he will forgive her. But for some reason, she remains silent. She probably still hasn't realized that Rebellia isn't hers. Well, that's even better, because she'll be able to use it. Rebellia told Aina that everything was fine, and that she really still had a lot of shortcomings, and that was probably what the lady was worried about. She whispered to the Duke to smile and remarked that it was their personal business. She was also grateful to the lady for her concern, but it was time for them to go. The lady was grateful to the Duke for the gift. Even though he was under no obligation, Jade noted that he couldn't ignore such a gift. His beloved had been insulted. There could be no other reaction. The Duke didn't need to do such a thing because their contract stated they were simply lovers. A relationship of convenience, beneficial to both. But his words sounded unreal. Rebellia asked him not to mislead her with such words. As for Alain Le Breton, she wants to get closer to him during their mission so that the gentleman can enjoy the opera. This theater is also owned by Effalentia. The Duke knew this, for the Count had transformed the theater into one of the capital's most beautiful venues, and it was no secret that he was involved in real estate. That's why Effalentia is so powerful, so I thought she wanted to reclaim this place. The founder of their family is James Effalentia, and Rebellia must reclaim everything her father created. That's why the girl said she wanted him back, and she would take everything from Malone. This is simply wonderful, and to begin with, the lady wants her target to be Alain. The mission begins. The man noticed that Miss looked shocked, so he asked if everything was okay. Aina told him not to worry, because she would immediately return to her when she could not fit into high society. Everyone thinks Aina is worried about the maid. Just looking, you'll see, there are a lot of people around her, and Rebellia also knows that she's worried about her. So she'll forgive her and return to her old ways. Suddenly, the lady wondered where everyone was looking, and then realized that their gazes were focused on the Duke and her maid. Jade whispered to Rebellia that all eyes were on them, and that was exactly the case. Some gypsy's daughter and a duke, whose power is second only to that of a king. We need to get down to business, while all this attention is focused on us. She couldn't repeat her mistakes if she wanted to grow her business. Aina didn't quite understand what had happened, or why she had come here. Aina asked her sister to come closer to her, because she was currently talking to Alain. Rebellia turned to the master and asked if she was free to be with him. She decided to humiliate Aina in front of all the aristocrats. Aina, in shock, asked Rebellia if she really looked down on her. Rebellia ignored her sister. The mistress noted that Lady was there, and the girls were glad to see her, adding that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. One of the ladies offered to chat with them, and Rebellia decided not to refuse. She is no longer Aina's servant, so there will be a chance to get closer to the Duke. Jade was glad it worked. Rebellia said that not being seen as a servant was already an achievement. She also asked him to be a normal, silent Duke. Aina believed that Rebellia would be better off keeping her distance, even though she was her mistress, but she had no intention of forgiving her. Aina noted that she did not expect such a surprise, and also asked the gentleman to continue his story. Alan is thinking about selling the new gems in his shop. She heard he brought back a large quantity of jewelry from the night auction. This time, there really were a lot. She would have certainly liked it. For example, the ruby necklace that Queen Revan wore at her coronation. Aina was shocked and said she'd really like to see it at least once. Aina hoped that Rebellia realized that this was a conversation between aristocrats and that she had no place here. The Duke couldn't figure out whether she liked Alan or not. Rebellia simply told him that no one could know, because once she got the blue diamond, she wouldn't care what kind of relationship they had. Well, now she needs to talk to him, so she approached him and asked if he had ever bought a gem that could blind. Rebellia would like to have something similar, unique, and at any price, so she asked him if he had anything in mind. Aina was sure that she wouldn't be able to buy it anyway, so she really wanted her to stop bothering her. Aina turned to Mr. Allen and explained what she had been talking about. The man had intended to ignore the child without authority, but it seemed the Duke was on her side. The blue diamond that Jade Parado will buy, and you will surely be a gift for his beloved. Aina turned to the gentleman again. He immediately spoke to Rebellia and said he apologized, but there was nothing he could do to help her. He doesn't have such gems, and this made the lady very surprised. The Duke apologized for helping her get what she wanted. Rebellia remarked that there was nothing strange about this, so the Duke asked her what they would do. The girl said there was no need to worry, it was just the beginning. He took the bait. All that was left was to wait. Rebellia said she wanted some fresh air and would be back soon. The Duke didn't mind. When she was breathing fresh air, someone suddenly spoke to her. When she turned back, she saw Mr. Allen there. Was it his imagination? Or was it the atmosphere around her that had changed? Work comes first. Gems come first. He thought it was all because of the blue diamond. Rebellia said that was exactly it, and that it was the only stone he needed. The gentleman asked if she would want him, even if he were cursed by God himself. A businessman, but far more pure than she imagined he could sell her without a word. The lady thought it would be better if it were even more unique. Allen turned to the lady and said he wasn't joking. He tried to say something else, but Rebellia told him she knew everything. A blue diamond in the shape of a teardrop, which brings nothing but misfortune to its owner. Allen couldn't see how he could sell it. Rebellia pointed out that he had bought it at auction, and I thought that the curse was a fiction. But after acquiring this gem, a catastrophe is looming. It started small and gradually got worse. A train derailed, killing an entire family. He recently had an incident with the carriage. Bad luck will overtake the mister, and she is not at all surprised by this. After all, the curse on this stone is pure truth, and the owner could try to throw it away. But this diamond can only be exchanged. No matter how much you get rid of it, it will return to its owner. But he can't sell it to you because he bought it at an illegal auction. Allen realized the lady knew everything, which is why she approached. The gentleman is trying to sell it illegally and is afraid the curse will overtake him. A cursed piece of jewelry in the store, especially one acquired illegally, will mean the end of his business. Allen wants to hide this diamond from others, so he talks to her away from prying eyes. Allen wanted to ask what she wanted, and the lady asked him to let him help. To avoid selling the blue diamond for next to nothing, she will buy it back for 15 times the purchase price. Allen wants to sell this stone at any price. He asked his father if the diamond was the cause of all their troubles. Father asked him not to joke because the cargo was damaged. He says the train derailed because of that stone, but the boy was certain he was cursed. His father thought he was a fool, like he didn't even understand the basics of business. He hadn't raised him that way. He bought it for the price it would fit, and now he wants to sell it for next to nothing. Does he really believe this nonsense, or is he just being childish? If he can't sell it from the display case, at least he can recoup the money he spent. A place in the Legriton family must be earned. He finally got there. Even as a child, he had excellent intuition. From a young age, he knew how to get close to people in order to get what he wanted from them. Allen Cross. And the field of activity was constantly expanding, and he clearly knew which way to go. His intuition has never failed him, and he is sure that the diamond must be gotten rid of. Father decided to threaten to disinherit him. He must do so. There will be problems, either way. Allen thought he was done with it until he found it in his office looking like it had just been bought. Allen didn't understand why this was happening, because he'd clearly thrown it into the sea. No matter how hard he tried, it always came back. Business was in decline, and there was no end to the small problems, and he was injured when a wheel broke on his carriage. The feeling of insecurity was constantly growing, and now the woman said that she would buy him at any price. This is really his chance. He needs to take advantage of the moment when she is alone. Since he couldn't throw it away, he'd just hide the truth and sell it. That's what he thought before he looked into her eyes. For some reason, her soul was filled with terror, and he believed that was precisely why there was such a mystical atmosphere around her. Or perhaps he believed her voice, which was full of confidence, so he asked her if he had a choice while kissing her hand. Allen couldn't refuse such an offer. He wouldn't get a second chance. Rebellia asked him to secure her an invitation to Countess Dora's banquet. The party is next week. The gentleman is shocked to find that this is all she wants. If she's talking about an invitation to a wine party, the Duke will have no trouble getting it. Rebellia just doesn't want to ask. To avoid creating more problems for him if he wants to sign a contract, Both parties should get what they deserve. Alan understood her and asked her to let him know if she wanted anything else. Meanwhile, the Duke was sitting at the performance, and when the robes arrived, he began to ask if everything had gone smoothly. Robelia explained that she promised to buy him a diamond, and it really did work. The more he spends with Robelia, the more he believes in miracles. Alan agreed so quickly, perhaps the incident with the train was also her doing. And there really wasn't a curse, just a couple of her tricks. Robelia laughed. I couldn't understand how she could get the train to derail if it was so far away from her. The curse really does exist, and one day a woman from the family of Marquis Millix, where the queen comes from, asked him to cast a spell. If it belonged to the women of the Millix family, it was a talisman of good luck. But in the wrong hands, it would only bring death, so it must belong to the Millix family. Only they know the spell. The Duke had heard that enchantments on objects lose their potency over time. The spell had weakened, and the diamond was causing only minor troubles. In the past, it would have killed strangers immediately. The Duke believed the Dowager Empress had sold him because she didn't know it. She hardly would have believed it because she wasn't sure anyone would. All that remains is to return the diamond. I need a chance to meet the Empress alone. The Duke decided to ask how he could help her. He said it unconsciously, and that's why he was scared. Robelia said that she wouldn't need his help with this. It wasn't part of the contract, so she would handle it herself. The maid came in and apologized for disturbing them, but she brought a cake. Gertsov noted that he had ordered it and smiled at the lady. She hadn't eaten once, and they had come here straight away. At the estate, she always eats little, but she never refuses sweets. He notices it every time Robelia is very surprised, because until that moment, no one knew she liked sweets. This kindness seems so strange to her, perhaps even sweet. Both the cake and his attention. Well, there are more important things now. We can't be distracted from revenge by such trifles. The lady said that it was not necessary to be attentive to her, but she was grateful for the cake and would eat it with pleasure. The Duke was pleased to have pleased her, and also told her that she could enjoy the rest of the show. Only now did Jade realize that he had been trying to please her. A week later, even though the maids did it, it turned out very beautiful. The invitation to the distinguished party is ready, and the lady is also ready, so she said that she will return soon. The gentleman asked Robelia if she knew that they would now live together. Aina was very happy because now she would have a sister, and they would live happily ever after. Malone asked his daughter what it all meant, because Robelia is a dirty, illegitimate child, so there is no need to consider her as a sister. In the future, Aina may become empress, and all thanks to Dad, and she will just be a servant, so his daughter can practice manipulating people over her. And if she feels uncomfortable, she should just think it's her doll. Since childhood, Aina has been the center of high society. Valentia is the most powerful and wealthiest nation after the imperial family, so no one would want to be their enemy. That's why most of the aristocrats were nice to her, and there were constant games with handkerchiefs. Everyone should serve her, including Jade Pareto. If it weren't for Robelia, everyone loves her. Well, because of that doll, everything's different. Aina just wanted to ask for betrayal, but she dared to humiliate her in front of everyone. Robelia made a fool of her, and Alan left immediately, putting her sister in a very awkward position. This is unforgivable. Countess Dora's estate. Jereminas asked his mistress for her hand, and she was grateful for his escort. She came out herself. Perhaps she was embarrassed that he immediately fell on his knee. Sir remarked that there was absolutely no reason to, since he himself had volunteered to accompany her. Robelia wanted to go alone, so as not to remain in his debt, but before leaving, he said that he would accompany her because it was dangerous. Robelia was surprised that Valentius's carriage was not there, and Aina was not there either. The maid said that she heard from another maid from the Valentia estate that Aina would not be at the party. It was unexpected she refused when she found out that Robelia would be there. For some reason, Aina is very capricious, or will she finally leave the lady alone? The plan remains the same anyway. Mr. Jereminas asked the lady to be careful, because he'll be waiting with the carriage. He seems genuinely concerned, and there's purest goodwill in his eyes. He's afraid she'll feel uncomfortable, so he keeps his distance. He's very attentive. The lady said she would return soon, and said goodbye to the night Miss Robelia arrived. Everyone was shocked with you that this illegitimate girl from Valentia allowed herself to do such a thing. Many couples couldn't understand why she was even invited here. She's the Duke of Parato's mistress, so she gets what she wants, while many predicted their time together wouldn't last. Suddenly, Robelia looked in his direction, and the man became very frightened. The theme of the party is music and poetry. Many people look scared there. That man has dark brown curly hair and black eyes. It looks like he is her target today. The Countess was grateful to everyone for coming. This is Helen Dora, Countess of the Dora family. The theme of this party was music and poetry. The Countess was at a loss for words. Perhaps she should thank him, but she had already done that, so she asked for forgiveness. Helen Dora is a close maid to Her Majesty. Most of the Queen's maids have influence in high society, but she is not able to host parties. Well, she has a weak character that is not suitable for high society. Just a good friend of the Queen, nothing more, nothing less. Well, it will be easier to get closer to her. Her older sister Florin. Florin turned to her and asked if she was still nervous in front of the whole crowd. Florin can't help her forever, but she still told her sister to go to the hall because she's acting like a child. Helen organized the party, but it's new to her, so Florin apologizes. The theme of this evening is music and poetry. In the first part, everyone can just chat. In the second, they'll listen to a poet invited to their place. Robelia remarked that she was just playing to the crowd, and Countess Dora was in trouble. Florin and Helen's feud began with their marriage. Helen and Count Dora were dating and were planning to marry. He proposed after 5 years of dating. She happily agreed and began wedding preparations. The problem was that Florin was still unmarried, and it was considered a great disgrace to marry later than her younger sister. So Florin began to compete with Helen at every meeting. She wanted to avenge the shame she'd suffered by attending her parties and making fun of her, destroying her reputation. Florin said that she was getting older, but her intelligence was the same, so she did not understand at all how she managed to get married at all. Years have passed since this happened, but the sisters' relationship has never improved. Helena can't send her away if only there was a way to restore her reputation. Suddenly, Robelia came up to her and asked if she would mind if she helped her. She finally found the real party organizer. The Countess was surprised when she saw her and noted that she hadn't sent her an invitation. Anyway, the party's ruined anyway, so it doesn't matter. But she doesn't chase her away. Robelia thought about what she wanted, but decided to forget it. In her place, she wouldn't listen to an illegitimate child either, but she'll have to, because that's Robelius's plan. She turned to the Countess and said that everything could still be fixed. Lady Florin helped save the party. 10 years ago, her husband said Robelia was Ephalentius's illegitimate child. When James was still alive, he saw her a couple of times and did not understand why she was so similar to him, even in her soft and bright character. After Julia and Malone's marriage, this child was suddenly excommunicated, and her patronymic was erased, leaving only her surname just like a commoner's. He is deeply saddened by the way this was done to James's child. Well, he can't interfere in the affairs of someone else's family because of his aristocratic pride. Perhaps this child was slandered. As her husband said, "We are related by blood, and our fates are very similar." So the lady agreed and said she would listen to her. It turned out to be easier than Robelia thought. Although even if she hadn't listened, she would have forced him to make a promise. But now she had to decide how to regain control of the celebration of her hand. The lady noted that Robelia's presence was a big surprise for her, but she was still very glad to meet her. Florin remarked that the last time they saw each other was at the opera. Robelia wasn't quite sure why the woman was telling her this. Florin asked if the lady remembered since she had approached her first. "I was confident because Robelia's memory often fails me." Florin remarked that it was no surprise she'd forgotten, as her thoughts were preoccupied with something completely different. For example, the seduction of Duke Alan sitting arm in arm with Duke Parato. Another man asked if she was really tired of being Ina's servant. It's funny, Miss Robelia seems to be unable to distinguish between good and bad deeds if she does this. The girl didn't understand the point of this absurdity. It seemed she decided to entertain the guests by mocking her. It doesn't matter on the path together. Such trifles are not important, because this is the meaning of her life. Today, Robelia will let them get away with it. But later, when she proves that she is the true Ephalentia and appears before him again, then we will see who will laugh last. So the lady decided to change the plan a little and said that it was very exciting, and now it was her turn to tell the love story. Robelia approached the Viscountess and asked if she wanted to know about her husband's affairs, such as Lady Shrail. She recently saw them kissing outside the academy. Everyone was in complete shock and couldn't believe it. The man said he didn't believe Lady Robelia's words, but judging by the Viscountess's reaction, it was true. This man betrayed his wife for an affair with a young girl, and it's even painful to watch. The Viscount tried to convince his wife that this was untrue. He noted that Lady Shrell had recently come to return a fountain pen she had forgotten. After this, the woman hit her husband on the cheek and then yelled at him that he had started an affair with her and decided to make a laughing stock of her in front of everyone. She started to walk away and ordered him not to follow her, but the Viscount rushed after her anyway. Florin was simply horrified. I didn't understand how this girl dared to ruin her party, so she turned to Rebellia and asked what she was allowing herself to do. The girl replied that she was simply talking about love stories, because people are so interested in listening to them. Florin thought she didn't even know who she was. She considered Rebellia simply a vile creature. The mudblood was trying to get in her way. It would have been better to just keep her mouth shut. A successful gemstone business would guarantee her a high position in society, so she said the girl could continue, and then they would see who would listen to her nonsense. Rebellia asked the lady if she was sure about this, and then whispered something in her ear. She asked if she mixed gemstones with fakes. She was so eager to show off the necklace that she put it on. But there was no money, so she ordered high-quality fakes and collected excess profits. It seemed to her that no one would ever know about it. This has happened many times over the past year, as she really needs the money. If she dares to do this again, she will be exposed, and human desires are very dangerous, especially for the aristocracy she deceived. The woman had no idea how she'd found out about it. Rebellia pointed out that she'd even worn the fake one, and she wasn't even sure whether it was bravery or rudeness. She also asked if anyone would stay on her side if the truth came out. Florin had no idea how she knew this. Well, it doesn't matter now. If the truth comes out, then her path into society is closed. It will reach the company if the imperial family finds out about it. So the woman began to think about how to hide it. She finally told Rebellia that she had made a terrible mistake, but Rebellia didn't think that was enough. Florin knelt before her and asked what she wanted. The Duke was surprised that Rebellia went to the party. The butler told him about it. Jade couldn't understand how she could go there without even asking him to accompany hers. Rebellia didn't think she'd be so frightened. Events are unfolding much faster than she expected. This even plays into Rebellia's hands. The girl said she wanted a sincere apology and a promise not to do it again, and that would be enough. Florin understood that she sincerely began to repent for her harsh words towards Lady Rebellia. And she'll be more careful in the future. Rebellia said she doesn't think something like this will happen again. Everyone thought Rebellia was a terrible woman because she drove her mistress to such extremes, and they were also interested in what she had said to her. In principle, it doesn't matter what she said, because it's terrible for an aristocrat to humiliate herself like that in front of a commoner. Florin decided that she would pretend to accept defeat, but would take full revenge once she destroyed the evidence. Once she returns to the estate, this simpleton has no place in high society. Rebellia added that she'd better not do anything stupid in the future. She has the proof in her hands, so her secret could be revealed at any moment. Even if Rebellia couldn't fit into high society, Florin couldn't believe it was possible, and she had foreseen it too. She'd better not show up at the party for a while if she had any sense left. It was a damn trap. Rebellia later promised to send her a letter. It's very easy to make someone believe there's dirt on them. Even that would be enough to subjugate her. Helena had no idea what had happened here. Countess Dora wasn't the only one caught off guard. The other aristocrats were also speechless. Many felt they had no reason to get involved in this scandal, so it was best to remain silent. Rebellia asked her mistress for forgiveness for causing such a commotion. She also asked if she could ask her to continue the party. They gathered to enjoy music and poetry. Helena said that was certainly true. This child is definitely my own. Helena announced the beginning of the poetry section. The next poem is called Serenade of Love. People are different, but they read about the same things. Aristocrats thought there was nothing interesting or entertaining about it. Rebellia approached the boy and asked if he was a poet. She also asked why he wasn't speaking. The guy was shocked and told her he was very confident in me and didn't want to argue with hers. Well, he doesn't know what kind of lady might like the poetry of a commoner, so he'll just listen and go home. He had even less self-confidence than Rebellia thought, even though he had written so many wonderful poems. That's why the lady said she thought everyone would like him. The guy didn't understand at all how she could know about this, and was very embarrassed by her words. Rebellia said she'd read Wilhelm's poems. The guy was completely shocked that the ladies even knew his name. The girl said that she was not exactly a lady, so he could just call her Rebellia. Suddenly, she read one of the poems, and then the guy remembered. The lady said it was incredibly beautiful. It was a ruse, of course, but the compliment was sincere. Everyone writes about love, but only Wilhelm's poetry is imbued with deep meaning, omnipotent nature. If he continues to convey his thoughts to people, he will surely achieve success. The guy didn't understand at all how she knew about this, and even burst into tears. Robelia said she was no lady, so he couldn't take her word for it. But the boy wiped his eyes, and he said that was more than enough. Helena was shocked because he claimed to have invited brilliant poets, but they sang such banal stuff. If this continues, the second part of the party will be ruined. Robelia turned to the lady, who immediately rejoiced when she saw her. Helena decided to ask who the guy next to Robelia was. After that, the guy introduced himself. Robelia assured the lady that he was a very talented poet, so she asked her for a chance to give this guy a performance. This is the same great poet Robelia was talking about on the balcony. He looks unreliable. However, Helena decided that it made no difference, so she was very happy to see him and invited him to perform. The guy decided he should give it a try. There was at least one person here who liked his lyrics. His fingers follow the rhythm precisely, and his voice is beautiful like aged wine. Poet Wilhelm Meister, the one who will become the greatest poet of the entire century. Everyone feels a special atmosphere when he sings. It's worth baking in the sun, and the warm rays touch the skin. Wilhelm had already finished, and everyone was in tears and applauding him. Robelia didn't think he'd be so good. His debut at Helena's birthday party marked a new chapter in his life. Helena had never heard such a beautiful song before, but no one would have known of such talent if not for Lady Robelia. Hiding it would have been a crime, so she told the lady that she had a very keen eye for a nugget. Helena also asked the lady to give her a couple of minutes of her attention. Helena didn't think Robelia had such a keen eye. It was the first time she had heard such a beautiful poem. It seemed a truly great poet had made his debut today. She also asked how the mistress had managed to put Florin in her place. Helena felt relief for the first time in 10 years. After such a trial, she would not appear in high society for some time. And it's all thanks to Miss Robelia. The girl said she could turn to her. Robelia had gained some trust, so they could move on to the plan. Suddenly, the Countess asked what she wanted from her. In high society, nothing comes for free, but she wanted it herself, so she accepted the help. Robelia couldn't understand why the seemingly weak Helena Dora was asking such abrupt questions. If it wasn't something reckless, she would help. It's so old-fashioned, a weak woman couldn't stay in high society for so long. Therefore, Robelia asked the Countess to convey the words to Her Majesty. Helena asked her if she understood how difficult her request was. Robelia noted that she understood everything, but her request was not unreasonable. Just one sentence. She found beautiful tears that were long lost. Helena was completely shocked that she had planned everything in advance. And how was that even possible? This is a smart child, so the woman began to think about what she should do. Whatever you say, it's better to repay debts promptly. After these words, the lady smiled and said she would convey the words to Her Majesty. Finally, they found the Countess and told her that he had very good taste and was a very talented poet. The man said that he would never forget the poet, so he invited him to participate in his event. She noted that they had been friends for many years, so it would not be difficult for me to introduce him to the gentleman. Then another man approached her, and she asked if he regretted his rudeness at the last party. Now all attention was on Helen. Indeed, if you invite a poet to your place, you need to ask permission from the organizer. Robelia had finished here, so it was time for her to leave. That same poet was running after her. Wilhelm was very grateful, because it was only thanks to her that he was able to perform today. Robelia was surprised when she saw Wilge and said that he was simply very talented and his poems were beautiful. Well, the guy didn't think so, and said that she had betrayed the courage to speak out, that he so lacked. Nobody believed in him, but he was able to overcome his fear thanks to her. Wilhelm was originally expected to achieve fame in high society within 4 years, without Robelia's help. He had merely upset his mother, but now she would be able to rejoice for him. Robelia merely accelerated this process, pursuing personal gain, with whom he called the lady his savior, and how he asked her to let him know if she needed any help, because he was ready to repay. Robelia smiled, because she too was pleased to hear that the boy remarked that the lady was very beautiful. Wilhelm said he was the one who should be thanking her. It was the first time the boy had seen such a beautiful lady. The next day, at the Parado estate, the Duke didn't know if he could ask why she went alone. She has such a character that she will start questioning him as to why he is interested. Suddenly, Robelia asked if something was bothering him. The Duke became very frightened and asked again. Now the Pose believed that he had a nightmare, and the Duke immediately said that this was exactly the case. Much time had passed, so he began asking when they would repeat the treatment. His subconscious needed to be examined, so the lady asked for her hand. Robelia knew this and brought the ingredients with her, after which the gentleman and lady joined hands. The Duke noticed that she was touching his hand again. They had done this before, but he still wasn't used to it. There is simply no other way another 2 days, and then they will be able to repeat the treatment after meeting with Her Highness. Jade remarked that it was excellent, and that they would do just that. Then in horror, he asked again who she would be meeting. Robelia received an invitation from the palace. The mistress invited her to take a stroll in the Rose Palace in 2 days. The letter was sent anonymously. The meeting would be secret. The Duke was shocked, because Robelia received an invitation from the Empress, because he didn't think that everything would be so simple. But this is great. If this is the Rose Maker, then this is the only palace open to outsiders. You just need to choose the right outfit to enter. Perhaps they pretend to have bumped into each other by accident. The Duke said that if that was the case, he asked permission to accompany her. He wanted to do it at least this once. 2 days later, at the Palace of Roses, Robelia and the Duke arrived. Jade told her to be careful. The lady did not understand at all why he was so pleased. When he asked permission to accompany her, Robelia immediately said that she could manage on her own. Jade knew about it, but he thought it would be too suspicious if she came there alone. If they pretended to be on a date, it would look more natural. He'll be fine in 2 days. Robelia noted that he was right. If Malone knew about this, they would have an alibi. It is easier to meet the Empress in the Duke's company. It seems she is in his debt again. Robelia had heard that the garden at the Rose Palace was a labyrinth, but she couldn't imagine it being so big. People always have problems when they come here for the first time. You can wander here until sunset. Robelia now understood why most people didn't even set foot in it. He noticed that only members of the imperial family knew their way around here. Now it was clear why she had arranged to meet here. The man remarked that they hadn't seen each other for a long time and was shocked that the Duke of Parado was also there. This is Prince Cedric of Fontenoy. The lady and the Duke greeted the gentleman immediately. He suggested they skip the formalities, because they had gathered because of Robelia's message. The prince's expression slightly angered the Duke. The prince told her to pass on because his mother was already waiting for her. The lady knew the Empress was intelligent, but she didn't expect to invite the crown prince along, so she told the Duke she would go and return soon. But Jade wouldn't let go of her hand, and Robelia couldn't understand what was going on. The Duke simply wanted to kiss her. He didn't mind. I said he'd wait. The prince would never have thought the Duke could be so caring, because Cedric thought that he would not forget his close relationships with girls. And to tell the truth, when he heard that they were dating, he thought that he was again trying to escape family pressure. Well, now he's seen it all with his own eyes, and he doesn't even understand how they managed to meet. Hedrick decided to ask her what kind of man she thought the Duke was. Robelia said he cared about her very much. He gave her a strange look, and then said it was wonderful. But she asked permission to advise her not to blindly trust the Duke and not to lose sight of her goal. Robelia believed he was simply displeased with her meeting with the Empress. Well, at least he managed to trick her. The Duke's visit wasn't in vain, Cedric Fontainham. She felt his disdain when she was Aina's maid. But he always showed politeness and gave gifts to win his sister's love. By whatever methods he achieved the people's favor, she in turn always suffered mockery, meaning because she was an illegitimate child without status. That's why Robelia is usually wary of Cedric. It makes her so uncomfortable. The crown prince informed the Empress that she had already arrived. Robelia actually saw the Empress in front of her and asked if she was the same child whose words the maid had conveyed to her, Empress Helena Fontenham. For her it was a big deal, but the Empress only asked where he was. And then she ordered her to speak. Robelia was shocked, because the mistress didn't even let her introduce herself. How did she even find the blue diamond? And does she know its history? How does she know what she wants? The Empress was only concerned with how she learned everything. Nothing more, nothing less. So she didn't even know what to do. Robelia reported that it was now owned by the Lagratine family. She had heard that he had won it at an illegal auction held in the province of Concierri. The Empress was simply furious when she heard that name again. If she got involved with them, rumors would be inevitable, and she couldn't trust it to anyone either. Robelia said she would buy it back and hand it over to her mistress. The girl turned to Her Highness and said that all she had was a bad reputation and no influence. Therefore, no one will suspect anything if she has dealings with the Lagrantain family. Rumors also circulated that Robelia Effalentia was an illegitimate child who had become a commoner. She had somehow received an invitation to a private party and then convinced Helen to convey the message. This child is so brave, she has the look of someone who has nothing left to lose, filled only with hatred. The Empress understands such people very well. They will achieve their goals at any cost. So she decided to see what she really wanted. The Empress asked out loud what the mistress wanted in return. The Crown Prince was completely shocked. The Empress believed that she hardly needed the money, and then she would have bought it and then sold it to her for an exorbitant sum. Perhaps she wants to attend an elite celebration, and then no one will be able to dare call her illegitimate anymore. Or perhaps she wants to marry the Duke of Pareto. She's very curious about Robelia Effalentia's wish. After a short pause, the girl said that she didn't really need anything. Any other aristocrat could be asked directly. But in an empire, the ruling family is an object of worship. Therefore, the Empress must be the one to choose the reward. So the girl said that she did not need anything. She has always sincerely admired the Empress and wants to be at least a little useful. Robelia has a very good reputation with me, but she will be very happy to help Her Majesty. That's all she wants. Suddenly, the Empress laughed very loudly. She stood up and remarked that the girl was quite brave to decide to help her. Well, she decided to give her a chance, and then asked her what she could do, and she succeeded. The Empress herself came up with this idea. Robelia had heard there was a vacancy in the palace, and it would be a great honor for her to participate in Her Majesty's life in this capacity. The Empress asked if she wanted to be her subordinate. She agreed, however, because she saw in her a talent for obtaining useful things, so she would take the position. Malone always wanted his daughter to take over as confidant, but it will go to Robelia. If she accumulates capital in this position, she will be able to rapidly expand her business. This is the first step toward restoring her position as Effalentia. The girl will undergo training, a pure formality, and after that, the lady asked where she could send the letter. Robelia said the Empress could send them to the academy. The woman decided to do so, and remarked that she should remember that their meeting today was a coincidence. Robelia was just strolling through the Rose Palace and admired her resourcefulness, so she was given the post. She won't have access to the treasury, but she will allocate some money as a reward for today. The girl was very grateful and understood that the Empress had not entrusted her with the management of the property, but had only rewarded her for the diamond. But even this is a good result. In the early stages, she will be able to invest without her help. Mom asked Cedric to take Robelia home. Then the boy thought about something. Cedric turned to Robelia and did not understand why she did not return to the Effalentia family. The girl didn't quite understand why he started talking like that. The prince knew she had always envied Aina. Anyone in her place would feel the same way, especially since Aina is purebred while she's an illegitimate commoner. It's hard to deny, but Robelia is a commoner, so she shouldn't try to overstep her bounds. Cedric heard that she and her sister had a fight at the theater. She cares about her so much, so he should be at least a little grateful. She had a dissolute affair with a powerful man, but that didn't make her any more worthy. Robelia said she had no quarrel with the lady. The prince was shocked because she had said something different. Robelia was certain the crown prince was a wise man and wouldn't jump to conclusions after hearing only one side of the story. Her relationship with the duke is just a coincidence. He accuses her of debauchery. If so, then the Duke of Parado isn't foolish enough to remain in his house with a harlot. The prince warned him to be careful with the duke. They're the only family even the royal dynasty can't look down on. After listening to Robelia, Cedric understands why Aina is so sad. People change very unexpectedly. A couple of months ago, she was kind to Robelia. The duke approached them and interrupted their conversation, apologizing for not noticing it immediately. The gentleman simply missed his beloved, and therefore asks you to forgive his rudeness. The prince said he could take her. Robelia tried to apologize for today, but everything she said was true, even if he thinks Aina is right in this situation. After that, they quickly went home. The Duke of Parado's estate, Robelia, needs to hurry to the academy. The count will definitely arrive when he learns of her position at the palace. Therefore, she will have to play the fool. The rest of the luggage that the duke did not carry is already in the carriage. Jade turned to Robelia and asked if he could help with anything. The lady said nothing was necessary, as she would deal with the Count herself. The Duke's presence would only make Malone even more wary. The Duke trusts her, but it is dangerous to go there alone, so he asks her to take at least Jeremias with her. The lady nevertheless agreed and told the Duke that she was very grateful to him for helping her today. Jade smiled and said there was nothing to thank him for. When a message arrived from Her Majesty, he would come and pick her up. Count Effalentia arrived. He was shocked to hear she was living here. Who would have thought that the palace would make such a decision? And he found out about it when the Empress had already issued the decree. The Count turned to the butler and said that he was looking for the room of the student Robelia. Jeremias asked the lady what she was doing. The girl replied that she needed to pretend that she was studying. If the Count found out that she didn't even live here, he would take her away again, so she asked the knight to help her. Jeremias was not at all against it. The Duke was heading very quickly towards his niece's room. Yes, he came up and assured the gentleman whether this was definitely Robelia's room. Malin burst into her room, and Jeremias was still talking to the lady about something else. He shouted the girl's name as she wondered what he was doing there. The man noticed the knight Parado there. Milan had no idea what he was doing there, and it all irritated him greatly. Although he didn't even need to know, he would just tell him to leave. So the gentleman said he had something to say to Robelia. She asked Jeremias to leave them for a minute. The knight tried to say something, but the lady asked him to stand by the door and to come in immediately at the slightest noise. Jeremias was very twisted because he had heard many rumors about the relationship between Count Effalentia and Robelia, so now he's unsure whether her decision was the right one. The Count was told that she and the Empress had a meeting in the Rose Garden, so he's curious about what Anna said that made her suddenly decide to make her managers. Robelia said that Her Majesty merely inquired why she had left the Count's residence and whether she had been happy there, to which she replied in the affirmative. Robelia told her how much the Count loved her, to which Her Majesty obliged her and allowed her to choose what she wanted. The Empress agreed that the Count was a good man, so she and the entire house of Effalentia were commissioned to serve in the palace. Malin was shocked with you that she accepted him. The girl noted that he said that if she accepted him, Effalentia would return to its former glory. Milan shouted that he had said that this place was meant for Anna. He had put so much effort into this. Robelia began to say that she did not know and would ask the Empress to cancel the order right now. Malone asked if she was really that stupid, or just pretending, saying if she did that, then he would no longer be safe. Robelia resisted the royal order precisely because of Ina. The very fact that he accepted her into the palace service is proof of how hard he worked. The idiot Empress gave her this position only because she thought he loved her like a daughter. And now she realized the position wasn't originally intended for her, so it's best to do nothing now. Robelia should just quietly learn to knit at the academy. He means that he will wait until this bad Empress gets tired of her and kicks her out of the palace. Robelia promised to carry out his orders. When Jeremias entered his mistress's room, he immediately asked if she was all right. The lady asked if there was any reason for her to be unwell, Sir Jeremias, though outside never let his guard down. The Count would never dare to harm her, and it is true that she feels fine. The knight was very eager to help her, and thought that perhaps she was too tense. If this was so, he decided to tell her that she would remain by her side until the Queen issued a decree. As a result, Robelia remained at the academy for 3 days, awaiting the imperial decree. After classes, she usually went to the academy library. She took only as many books as she could carry and read them all night long. And all this time, as Sir Jeremias had promised, he was always with her. Robelia asked the knight for his thoughts on the doctrine of war. Robelia said that war is a collection of brutal events, the purpose of which is to force the enemy and his forces to admit defeat. Suddenly, Professor Bridnell appeared before her. The girl assumed something was wrong, since she had rushed into the room like that. Professor Bridnell was a member of the Academy's admissions committee. The woman shouted that Her Majesty the Empress had sent a decree to Robelia. Everyone who was in the library began to think about what kind of decree this was and what its content was. He finally left. Robelia wondered where she should go. First, she needed to go to the dean's office. The lady said she was coming right now. A young man carrying a large number of books was walking next to her, and he started to fall, hitting the lady. But Jeremias managed to catch her. Jeremias asked the boy if Leon was okay, and if he'd tried to cause harm. The boy apologized, as he couldn't see what was ahead of him because of the mountain of books. Robelia sat down and took his glasses, after which the guy became very embarrassed and immediately thanked the lady and quickly ran away. It looks expensive. He probably accidentally dropped it and didn't even notice his brooch. She'll have to give it to him when they meet. The professor asked the lady if she could hurry to the dean's office. When they were already there, the professor said that she could enter the reception room. The woman was glad to finally see the lady and noted that they had not seen each other for a long time. Robelia was very surprised when she saw Countess Dora in front of her. The countess said to look at what one of the maids had just brought. This is the Empress's decree, which is intended for the one hired to be the manager of the imperial palace. Robelia thought that this letter with the seal was apparently a decree, so she asked what it was. This is the key to Her Majesty's personal treasury. From now on, she is responsible for it. If she goes to the bank, she will be able to find the budget distributed and use this key. The rest of Her Majesty's property is also managed by Robelia. The girl thought this was obvious. If she squandered all her property, she would lose the Empress's support. The Countess had also already heard that the Empress had entrusted this position to Robelia. Therefore, the girl must live up to her expectations. If she fails, her position will go to someone else. If this is a manifestation of the blue diamond, she will never be disappointed. Tomorrow the Countess will receive what she desires from the Empress. The Countess was in shock with you that this would happen tomorrow because she had not been able to find a trace of her for several years. Although she has no experience in the upper class, she acts as if she's been there for over a decade. Furthermore, she's at the very center of the elite, knowing everything. If she's come this far, it's obvious she has nothing to lose. It's such a surprise. The Countess didn't even know what to say now, only to warn her of the danger of this incident. There's still one monumental obstacle ahead, and that's Robelia. The Empress isn't the type to trust someone else so easily. Helena turned to Miss Robelia and said that if she still wished to serve Her Majesty, she must understand that they were now in the same boat. And the Countess is now satisfied with her, but she should be more careful with her behavior. Any small misdeed could harm the Empress, as it would damage her reputation. The Countess will stop her by any means necessary, and she must also convince herself that this profession also gives her a huge responsibility that not everyone can handle. Although she seems to have a fairly good understanding of how elite society works, the girl has only just entered adulthood. Perhaps the Countess had frightened her too much, and she hoped the girl's motivation hadn't flagged. Robelia told her mistress not to worry, because she'll remember her advice. It looks like her worries were for nothing. The knight asked the lady if she was sure that she could go outside. Robelia said that having become the manager of the palace, she can now come and go freely, without any permission. Suddenly, they saw the Duke of Parado emerging from a carriage. The lady was very surprised when she saw him, and couldn't understand what he was doing there. Jade heard that she received the Empress's decree, so he came to her and asked how she was doing. Robelia said Sir Jereminus was a great help to her. Come to think of it, she was with Joachim for 3 whole days. The man asked her to tell him what had happened during all this time. Of course, they would talk about it on the way back in the carriage. Robelia didn't mind at all, and offered him her hand. Robelia said she had received the key to the treasury. She was going to the bank to get money to buy diamonds. The Duke asked if she was serious, and if she'd ever been to a bank. She hadn't been, and she'd never had any reason to go there before. The Duke invited her to come with him. Since this was the only imperial bank she knew, the building must seem enormous. But Robelia didn't even imagine that there would be so many people here. They'd have to wait all the way to the end of that line, and that would take a long time. There were a lot of people there. The gentleman told the girl to come in and say her name, and then he would put her in line. The woman noticed that it was the Duke of Parado, so she told the boy to go ahead, and she would take care of them. The girl immediately bowed and greeted the gentleman. It was the vibe of 10 years of experience interacting with society. A visit from a gentleman is a great honor for them, and they will take him to a VIP room. That's 1,200,000,000 Meniki Robelia. Feels like this is new to him too. But the Duke of Parado's influence is astounding. If it weren't for him, she would have had to stand in line for several hours. The gentleman didn't quite understand why she was looking at him like that, but he smiled at her. Robelia asked His Excellency if he could come into the estate first. This world is so unfair. This was just too weird. He wanted to tell Miss that no matter what he did wrong, she wouldn't behave like that. That same night, Count Lagratina's estate father had no idea when all these gems would be sold, and he smashed everything in his path. He heard from the servants that he sold the blue diamond for 80 million maniki. The guy tried to say something about a curse she met you, that it doesn't matter whether he is cursed or not, because he sold an extremely valuable gem at such a low price. If he had sold it for a symbolic 100 million, the income would have already become 20 million. The father did not expect this from his son. He knew the guy wouldn't be successful, but to do it like that, the guy shouted that he would negotiate. Alan told him to double it. He would get 160 million. He can't say that he decided to raise the price 15 times higher because he didn't know how his dad would react. The father decided to ask when he'd decided to bargain, and the boy said it was something else. But they were interrupted by the favor, who turned to Alan. Miss Rebelia said she wanted to negotiate with him, so she requested a meeting. Alan asked the servants to leave them alone. The master provided the stone they had agreed to sell. Rebelia asked if she could look at him, and the gentleman, of course, did not mind. She said that she would buy this damn gem at such an exorbitant price. Then he gave in to temptation and gave the go-ahead for the deal. But no matter how much he thought about it, he still couldn't understand. What if he pretended like nothing happened? So he said everything would be fine if she only paid him 100 million you. The lady said that he bought it for 80, and then she promised him 15 times more, which is 1,200 million. The man was in complete shock when he saw so much money in front of him. Alan told the lady that he would accompany her to the carriage if she did not object. He is very grateful for today's deal, and she probably has no idea how much he gained from it. Rebelia said that wasn't true. The stone was very important to her too. Besides, she believed she paid a fair price for it. He also heard that the lady had met Louis at the academy. Rebelia had asked about it. So the boy remarked that she seemed unaware. She meets dozens of different people at the academy after all. The lady had a hunch he was referring to his half-brother Louis. Rebelia said that she had a feeling they had never met, and that she regretted it. The guy said that everything was fine, and asked that she arrive safe and sound. The next morning, the Pink Palace Helena asked Her Highness if the girl had found the required stone. The lady said that this was exactly what she was looking for. The Empress was very pleased with this stone. Suddenly, someone knocked on Rebelia's door. The girl asked Sir Jeremias what had brought him to her. The gentleman immediately produced a letter, which surprised Rebelia. She wondered who it was from, but Sir Horror showed there that she should be quieter and not talk. The fact that the Duke gave the order and sent a knight suggests that he was very concerned about the issue of security. Rebelia realized this letter had come from the Imperial Palace. She was planning a reception in a week to thank the girl for her efforts, so she had to be prepared. In addition, from now on, Rebelia will be granted 2,400 million meniki, so she can use them as she pleases. The illegitimate child of a count, the daughter of a despised gypsy. She had heard such insults countless times. Well, they couldn't break her because she had a purpose. Rebelia started her journey as an ordinary person, with nothing to her name, met many people, and they gave her courage. If all these people had not been around, she would not have been able to achieve what she has now. 2,400 million. This amount is enough to open the next business that she has been planning for so long. Now the circumstances are on her side, so she will not miss this chance at any cost. Rebelia remembered her mother's last words. She still hears her mother's faint voice when she closes her eyes. Luck is on her side since she's here, but this time it's going to be different, and she's ready to get to Malone. The Count will not get off easy with death. It will take absolutely everything from him. He'll do it in the most excruciating and painful way. Rebelia wants to kill him. Rebelia asked her mother to wait a little longer, and then she would return the true Effalentia family. Rebelia asked for forgiveness. She was going to start treatment immediately after meeting with Her Highness and the Empress. While the Count stayed at the academy and arrived so late, the Duke said everything was fine, and the nightmare subsided after the first time. Jade asked if he needed to continue being unconscious every time. The lady can't do anything about this, but she can share with him a trick for inducing lucid dreams. You need to establish signs. Having done this, the gentleman will begin to notice them and will be able to faintly realize what is happening and wonder if this is a dream. When the gentleman notices, for example, that his fingers are bending backward or he glances at his watch. The fingers part is a bit scary, but he likes the idea of braiding them himself, especially since he always wears a pocket watch. The lady noticed that they looked very old, so she wondered what they meant to him. Rebelia asked the Duke to make a habit of looking at his watch at regular times so that he would be more likely to look at it in his sleep. The Duke asked if she was saying that he should get used to it, And then he believed that today, they would not be able to achieve results in this. Rebellia said probably not. It would be difficult to achieve lucid dreaming right now. The maids were talking about that girl, and they heard that the Duke had called her to him that night too. He never showed much interest in women, but it seems like this time he's really fallen in love. Another maid thought that there was no love there, because she could see last time how he took her out at dawn, did what I wanted, and threw her out. One of the maids noticed the gentleman, and the others continued to say that a commoner could not please the Duke. And they didn't understand at all why he called a mudblood of gypsy blood his beloved. The maid thought that she was much better than Mrs. Rebellia. The Duke could not even imagine that such horror would happen in his house. The maid immediately began to say that it wasn't what he thought Jade said, that an aristocrat's servants chattered about their master's personal life like rats and insulted his dear guest as best they could. The Duke's authority is no joke to them. With their chatter, they've damaged his position as Duke, and now they must take responsibility for it. He ordered the maids to pack their things before dawn and leave the estate. They were completely baffled by how he could do such a thing, and the Duke added that they would pay for their mockery, and he'll write me a recommendation for them. Those who were fired without a recommendation are destined for the streets. They will never be able to work for the aristocrats again. The aristocrats will never accept those who caused problems in another estate. Moreover, with all due respect to the Duke of Parado, there is no one brave enough to hire someone who was kicked out of his house. Jade asked Rebellia if she was okay. She closed her eyes and said yes. Her face didn't show anything had happened. Rebellia couldn't understand why the Duke was so angry and cruel to the maids. The Duke said he was so ashamed that she had to listen to such things on his estate, but she seemed to have an idea why it was hard for her to accept that he was angry because he was worried about her, so she pretended not to know anything. The Duke is a good man. The mercy he has shown her all this time is the highest measure of care that one person can show to another. But because of this, her chest feels like it is being squeezed by a vice, because she is so pathetic that she is surprised by good treatment from anyone, because she seems like a beggar who grew up without even learning how to read and write. The lady said everything was fine, and there was no need to worry. The Duke was convinced she wasn't even angry. Rebellia merely said that these people had nothing to do with her plan for revenge. The Duke shouted that it didn't matter who they were, because she had been unfairly insulted. So the girl should get angry and put them in their place. Jade is genuinely worried that this might break her inside. After all, she's his guest, so he can't worry about her. Just in case, as she already said, she is not interested in anything unless it concerns the return of the inheritance that is rightfully due to her. No matter what they say about her, no matter how people treat her, if they are not involved in the plan together, then it makes no difference to her. She doesn't want to get used to such a warm human attitude, because if it disappears anyway, it would be better not to feel it at all. Therefore, the lady asked him not to treat her specifically, but as an ordinary person. Surely for the Duke, such concern is normal, but for her, it would mean letting him get too close. Jade said he understood and offered to continue her treatment. But for some reason, he seemed more hurt than Rebellia. The girl said she would begin, and then she found herself in his dream. She believed it was a reception hall in the Imperial Palace. In the original, the second treatment was a memory of a battle with monsters. The Duke's subconscious altered the dream. Apparently, who he talked to right before going to bed and what he talked about leaves its mark. Rebellia tried to concentrate, judging by the fact that the story takes place in the Imperial Palace. This was the fifth dream from the original, titled Reception at the Palace. The reception the Emperor held to congratulate the Duke of Parado on his victory. It was here that the curse first manifested itself. Now was the time for them to come out. The servant announced that everyone should greet His Majesty the Emperor and Her Majesty the Empress, and His Highness the Prince and His Highness the Duke of Parado walked together with smiles on their faces. This reception took place 4 years ago when Jade was 19. He looks younger than she thought, and perhaps her memory is failing her. At the Fencing Masters tournament, he seemed very grown up. The ladies were very happy to see the gentleman, and it seemed he was looking at them. In any case, the attack itself will happen during the landing, so it would be better to leave in advance. In the hall, the Duke caught the main character's eye, and she immediately turned and left. She didn't understand what had happened. After all their eyes had met, Rebellia decided that couldn't be true, as there were so many people there that he wouldn't be able to see her. The Duke turned to Rebellia and said he hadn't seen her before. It was surprising to meet a stranger here. The girl had no idea when he'd managed to get here. Only members of the upper class had been invited to today's reception, so he hadn't expected to see an unfamiliar face. Robelia felt relieved that he didn't recognize her. That was enough because it was time to pull herself together. If he senses anything suspicious, the curse's aim may not manifest itself. Robelia said that it was her first time at such a reception, so it was not surprising that the Duke did not recognize her face. Robelia noted that he was the main character, so she didn't quite understand why he went out into the garden so quickly. The gentleman said that it was just like that. He didn't like such luxurious receptions. Robelia interested him more. The girl didn't understand why. He simply doesn't turn down girls for me, but picks up any girl he can. After that, the Duke laughed. Jade asked what was wrong, and noted that her face looked as if she had seen something shameless. It was probably because she was meeting him for the first time today. The Duke said it was a mirror image because he hadn't seen her either, but she intrigued him more. So he decided to ask her if she'd believe him if he said he'd fallen in love with her at first sight. Robelia apologized and asked again what that meant. Dukes himself didn't know. He realized that he had embarrassed the girl by speaking frankly. It was obvious that this was their first meeting, but for some reason he had the feeling that he had known her before. Then the realization struck him that this feeling was love. Robelia believed he was simply remembering their contractual relationship in reality. Well, that's impossible, unless he's lucid dreaming. Jade said it might sound weird, but she seems different. He lost his head at the sight of her. Suddenly, he had an attack of needing to find the curse mark and get rid of it. Robelia didn't even know where she might be this time. Jade asked her to go into the hall and call someone. The Duke continued to say that he was a monster. He was so shocked, because this was his first attack, that even from the outside, the sight of it made his blood run cold. He feels like he's turning into a monster. It's terrifying to feel the monster slowly consuming him. Robelia asked Jade to breathe slowly. The man apologized for grabbing her. The Duke asked her not to run away and to help him. When he unbuttoned his shirt, she saw a mark on him. The guy kept saying he was so ugly that he apologized for looking like that. Robelia said there was no problem at all, because she knows he won't hurt her, but his hand has become like a monster's. Jade kept saying he was a monster, but the lady didn't think so because everything was fine. Robelia assured Jade that he was a monster to me. If what he saw was too scary, then he should close his eyes, and then everything would be fine. Suddenly, he calmed down, which even surprised Robelia. She bit her finger and blotted out his mark with blood. She asked the Duke to be patient for a little while. It would all be over soon. He was completely exhausted. Well, if the dream fully conveyed the suffering that he experienced during the first attack, then it was very difficult for him. But now, it was time to return to reality. She took his hand herself, and within seconds, she was back in reality. Robelia was so tired, so she decided to sleep a little, and then she would feel better. The Duke begged her not to leave. He spoke all this in his sleep and lay in tears. Before him, it was so easy to ask a stranger for help. These moments she feels are so different. Her life was filled with people who not only didn't help her in times of trouble, but only pulled her deeper into a dark abyss. Because of people like that, she doesn't trust anyone anymore. However, it seems she's just a little jealous of him. Robelia was so exhausted that she couldn't cope and fell asleep right on his arm. The maid knocked on the master's door and said she was coming in. She prepared water for his bath. The Duke told her that Robelia was still asleep, so he asked her to come back later. Aina was informed that an invitation to a reception had arrived from the imperial palace. The girl was overjoyed, as it was Her Highness who had invited her. But the maid still had something else to tell the mistress. Aina gladly decided to listen. According to the Count, this girl has taken the position of palace representative. Robelia will also be present at the reception. Now Aina understood what was going on. Everything was fine. After all, it was her duty to look after the missing family member. The maid thought that her eyes were deceiving her because she was so angry after visiting the opera house. For some reason, she suddenly behaved differently. Aina is the legitimate child of the Ephelentia family. She is the most kind-hearted and beautiful candidate in line for the throne, no doubt about it. Apparently, the sister had to leave home because she could not bear the feeling of her own inferiority. As proof, she constantly takes away what is rightfully Aina's. Regardless, her sister's claim to the throne is a very insignificant one. In that case, Aina, the future empress, must pretend to be the protector of a family member who constantly goes beyond the pale. So be it, only this time she'll give her one more chance. The empress's reception is in a week. She's been unfairly insulted. It would have been better if she had been angry at such an attitude. The Duke believed he shouldn't have been so harsh. It was the first time he'd seen that expression on her face. The butler approached him because the master had insulted him. The Duke turned to Geralt and asked if he knew why he had called him. The butler believed it was because of the scandal that had occurred the other day. The butler was aware of this. Well, for some reason, he let it go this far. Jade invited Miss Rebelia to the Parado estate to win the guess. He told her to take care of her so that she would not want for anything during her stay here. He had no idea that his butler would not understand the order, so frightening that a chill ran through my body. The butler was too self-righteous. He was caught up in the rumors spreading around. In the end, he took Miss Rebelia lightly. Even though he saw the maid's haughty behavior, he simply turned a blind eye to it. The blame for this incident lies entirely with him and nothing else. Because of what happened, the Duke decided to punish him. The butler immediately fell to his knees and began to ask for forgiveness, saying that he had realized his guilt too late and was ready to accept punishment, but was only asking to be given a chance to correct the mistakes he had made. Geralt promised to do everything possible to achieve this. The Duke said that this time he would believe him. He expected this from a butler. He also added that he should be prepared to work overtime. The Empress thanked everyone for accepting the invitation, and she would like to introduce one person to them. People talked among themselves and did not understand who it could be. The Empress asked Rebelia to come to her, so she stood up and walked toward her mistress. As the girl walked, she heard many words behind her. Many didn't understand who this girl was, and couldn't believe that she could have anything to do with the Empress. Rebelia had already approached Her Highness and was glad to greet the only moon of their country. The Empress asked her to stand beside her. Rebelia said it was too great an honor for her. The Empress should introduce her. A few weeks ago, while strolling through the garden of the Rose Palace, she happened to meet this child. Because of her impressive resourcefulness, she wanted to have her by her side, so she entrusted her with the position of palace representative. Aina did not understand at all how it happened that her sister was standing next to Her Majesty. She couldn't just take her place, the most honorable position that non-royal people can occupy. Even Aina, from Count Effalentia's family, hasn't yet had the opportunity to stand there. Rebelia is the child who will become her right hand, and it would be better if they all remembered this face well. As she already said, today's reception was organized for her, but they shouldn't be upset that they weren't the main characters. She prepared a variety of activities for them to enjoy the reception. Everyone couldn't believe it, and said they would do whatever she had in store. Many people wanted to talk to Miss Rebelia, who had managed to captivate Her Highness. The Empress said they could enjoy it. Aina approached her sister. She congratulated her on her new position as representative. She also said that she needed to tell her something, so she wanted to talk to her alone. Rebelia turned to Lady Aina and asked what she wanted to tell her. Aina closed the doors and turned to her sister with a smile, saying that she wanted to give her a chance. Rebelia left the Effalentia family due to leaving for the academy without telling her a word. She didn't send her a single message, after which they met for the first time at the opera house. Aina had no idea that the two of them had become so close. If she had known that they were in a relationship, she would not have given her to him. But anger boiled within her. At the shame she had brought upon her, Rebelia didn't quite understand where she was headed. Aina said that despite everything she forgives her, because everyone makes mistakes and everyone knows it. Rebelia is her sister, not some stranger. So who will look after her, if not Aina? Rebelia was absolutely horrified when she heard that she was forgiving her and asked her to stop. Aina said that she would give her a chance, so she should return to the Effalentia family. The ladies noticed the same poet who was at the Countess's party. One of the ladies approached Her Highness and asked if this guy was the poet Wilhelm, who had participated in Countess Dora's salon party. Even the most nitpicking literary critics did not skimp on praise at the time. He is amazing despite his young age. The lady said that thanks to her knowledge of art would improve, so she thanked Her Highness for the great mercy. The Empress noted that this was true, and she too was curious. So she asked the boy to hurry up and begin. Everyone listened to the boy's music and poetry in delight. The Empress remarked that his voice was like the singing of an angel. After he finished, everyone stood up and started applauding the boy. Everyone recited only tedious verses in praise of the Empress, but of all those she had ever heard, his voice was the most beautiful, and his verses touched her to the depths of her soul. So the lady asked the boy to come to her. Wilhelm was deeply grateful. The lady said his singing was even better than they'd heard it. It was the first time they'd heard such beautiful poetry. They also felt compelled to do what they'd long wanted to do. The Empress noted that they all thought so, and Helen spoke well of him, and the poems turned out to be wonderful. She also liked them. He knelt before the Empress, and also expressed gratitude to Her Highness. She had already asked him to rise because she loved it when gifted people disregarded conventions. The Empress became curious about how he had written such verses. He wanted to share with others the courage his benefactress had bestowed upon her. It turns out that even geniuses like him find inspiration in others. The Empress wondered who had helped him, because the lady wants to repay him with gifts for giving her ears such delight. Wilhelm noted that she helped him dedicate a poem to Her Highness. She helped him gather his strength when he was afraid to perform in front of a large audience. The Empress recalled that she had heard this child first recite his poems at Helen's salon parties. The Empress remembered Helena telling her that thanks to Rebelia, the party had been a great success. The guy said that his patroness is Lady Rebelia. Suddenly, the Empress laughed very loudly and said that this was true because this girl was incredibly talented. This time, too, she exceeded all her expectations, so the lady immediately wanted to invite her to her place. But the lady was surprised when she didn't find Rebelia there. The lady said she had gone to the lounge with Lady Aina. She also asked if she needed to be called Elena, thought about it, and then went to the break room. And then the Empress said that it was not worth it, because she would bring her herself, because she wanted to learn so much from this child. Then the lady went into the room, and she heard Aina telling her to leave her position as the royal representative. The lady did not understand at all what this meant, and did not want to believe that Lady Aina dared to doubt her decision. Aina did not understand at all why she entered the room now, and therefore burst into tears and began to ask for forgiveness, because she said this in a fit of emotion. Aina said that she did not want to contradict Her Majesty anymore, so she begged for forgiveness very vehemently. Robelia apologized and said that she believed Lady Aina had said something inappropriate in her private conversation with her. The people behind her told Her Majesty that although the lady's actions were reprehensible, she had come to praise Lady Rebellia's efforts and also make a generous reward. Even if she is Ephalentius's daughter, she will be punished for daring to disobey the imperial decree. But the Empress had organized this reception to honor Rebelia. If she dined as a punishment, the aristocracy's attention would be focused on Aina, not Rebelia. Besides, she herself does not want this and asks not to allow such a situation, so she said that this time she will allow the lady to go unpunished. Aina thanked the lady and then promised that such a thing would never happen again. Well, if such a situation arises again, then people should be prepared to feel the full wrath of the Empress. Elena hoped that today's incident had taught the lady to watch her language. When the Empress and the girl returned, many began to ask the lady whether she really was Wilhelm's benefactress. Rebelia noted that she thought the word benefactor was a big exaggeration. It's surprising that she managed to become the queen's favorite, since she is from the common people to boot. The woman asked her friend if she remembered the rumors that Lady Rebelia might be the legitimate daughter of the Ephalentia family. It is true that there were such conversations, and many recall that quite a large number of people had doubts at that time. Yes, she would have been so modest and well-mannered to me if aristocratic spirit had not flowed through her veins. It sounds like she really is a legitimate Ephalentian Rebelia. Took what belonged to Aina. So the girl started asking her father what she should do. Malone was already very tired. The last thing he needed was for that stupid girl to take away everything that belonged to his daughter. As for the palace representative position, that's not Rebellious, but their Ephalentia clans. She should at least have an idea of how vile this girl is, and how much of a problem she's causing. As soon as the Empress herself understands this, she will, without thinking twice, take away the tablet of the palace representative. And then, Aina will be in her right place. From now on, when the Empress introduces Robelia to high society, Aina must demonstrate the well-behaved nature of a legitimate child in comparison. They would be constantly compared. Aina thought about this and realized that everything was lost, and no one would compare them anymore. She shouted at her father that he had simply said that she simply needed to behave nobly around Robelia. And then, instead of being a palace representative, he will belong to her. But in the end, it's different. The Empress gave her a place for herself, not Ain. Seeing this, others began approaching their sister and starting friendly conversations. She can't take such an important position away from her, so Aina doesn't understand why this is happening, and why he even let this parasite into their house. She asked her father if he knew what people were saying. They all thought the girl was Ephalentius's legitimate child, and the girl believed it was all because of her father. And then Malone raised his hand against his daughter. The man simply hit her in the face. Aina couldn't believe her father had hit her and thought it wasn't true. But still, the girl decided to ask her father why he did it. Malone raised her, and this is how she repaid him. She was disgraced at a salon party, and his daughter arrived as if nothing had happened. He was horrified that she had heard rumors that Rebellia was a legitimate child. And with all this, she just calmly left there and did not object to these rumors in any way. Malone shouted that he had eaten and invested so much in order to gain the Empress's favor, and she couldn't even help but disgrace them. Father said that if she had done as she was told, there would have been no problems, but she ruined everything. Therefore, she must remember well that everything that Ephalentius has is not her property. Her father gave her all of this. The clothes she wears, the best food she eats every day, right down to how everyone idolizes her. If she understood everything, then he ordered her to stay in her room for a whole month. No food, until she realizes her mistakes. Aina thought about how her father didn't love her. Malon ordered the maids not to give her water, until he ordered otherwise. The Count remarked that he should have done this earlier. Aina was shocked, because she was his daughter. Just like her sister in her hands, she herself was a puppet in the hands of her father. Aina was a way to bring honor to the Ephalentia family, and she finally realized it. The gardener approached the Duke and said that he would take care of it, but the gentleman said that it was not worth it, and that he had better go and rest, since it was not yet late. He didn't understand how, after all, the Duke was cutting his favorite flowers. He told the master that he couldn't rest while he was doing his work. Lady Rebellia approached them. The Duke was delighted to see her and asked if everything had gone well. For some reason, it was the first time they had met since that day, and it still felt so awkward. I already said that I liked the Empress, and the Duke remarked that it always feels like she copes with difficult tasks, as if they are nothing to her. Rebellia said she was lucky this time, and now she had to tell him. The Duke said that even if she was lucky, it still wasn't easy. Rebellia really wanted to apologize to him. It was necessary to draw the line, but she couldn't hurt him. As soon as he finishes speaking, she wants to apologize to him, but suddenly, the Duke himself asked for forgiveness for yesterday. He raised his voice because he was worried about her. She must have been scared. Therefore, he apologizes for the fact that she was so upset that she said all sorts of things without trying to understand her, and also promised to be more careful in the future. At that moment, strangely, she felt calm, but she didn't understand why. Rebellia assumed it was because he'd once again reached out to her first. She too apologized for her harsh words. Why did you warm her heart? Now she's planning to open her own business. The Duke asked her about her first business and whether she was considering opening a boutique. It would be a simple venture, of course, but not that simple. Rebellia wants to go to Meodanion. The Duke realized it was the mining region to the west, and then he noted that it was very dangerous, as she herself knew who had failed in business and lost everything, was settling in those lands. Therefore, they are not known for their safety. Even with large capital, it is impossible to start mining, and the risks of such an undertaking are incredibly high. No matter how much money she invests, if she doesn't make a profit, in the end, all that will be left in her hands is the earth and stones. That's what the mining business is. The lady noted that the Duke was right. The mines were high risk, but if you succeed, there was no better way to get rich. Jade added that there was another problem. This place was almost entirely owned by Count Ephalentia. The girl has a good mine in mind, and the Count won't know that it's her. This time, Rebellia intends to play a game that benefits only herself. To achieve this, she wants to ask the Duke for something. The Duke smiled and remarked that it seemed she had a plan again. Whatever it was, he would be happy to help. The servant gave the lady what she asked for. Because it had already been finished, Rebellia remarked that it truly looked like the real thing. Rebellia was very grateful, and she did not know that the herald had connections in such places. The butler noted that her actions would be limited, and the Duke again inquired whether the commoner's identity card would be suitable. Rebellia said that was exactly it, since she too was a commoner. She also asked me to convey her gratitude to the Duke. Aristocrats were too famous. Suddenly, the butler turned to the lady and asked for forgiveness for what had happened. Rebellia didn't quite understand what he meant. The butler hadn't performed his duties with due diligence and had treated her rudely, and for that, he sincerely apologized. He is ashamed that he made her go through these terrible things while we were staying with them. Where did you ask the mistress to tell you what punishment she wanted for him? And he would humbly accept it. Rebellia was shocked that he had spoken to the butler, but she really was fine. She told him that she understood him and that he shouldn't worry too much about what happened, because if you look at the truth, it wasn't his fault. Geralt was grateful to the lady and promised to make every effort to ensure that life in the estate would flow smoothly from now on, and if she needed anything, she could tell him at any time. The maids called the lady and said that they had prepared everything as the mistress had asked. When the maids were finished, they noticed that their mistress was a completely different person. She was now Catherine Hayward. This is the guise she will use in Meodanian. The butler remarked that what he saw was definitely not Lady Rebellia. Jeremias asked the maid to stop for a moment. He would follow her if she let him go. The maid said she had brought him. The knight had said this was Lady Rebellia's room. Jeremias asked the girl who she was. The maids were relieved as he didn't recognize her. One of them said it was Lady Rebellia. The lady also decided to greet the gentleman, and he was in complete shock. He couldn't believe what she said about traveling with a separate ID was actually true. The maid remarked that they had simply put makeup on her. They also planned to make him Rebellia's brother, because he's responsible for safety on this trip. The girl was shocked to discover that makeup could actually do such a thing. She didn't even recognize herself. The maid told the lady to try on a new identity and meet the Duke. She needed to make sure her lover didn't recognize her either. Rebellia, for her part, was very surprised. The man thanked His Grace for the discussion and said he was on his way out. The Duke said he would let everyone know tomorrow, whether it was accepted or not. I need to go back to the office and take care of everything else. The butler knocked on the door and told the master it was him. It seems the gentleman is very busy today, so he made some tea to help him sleep and asked the gentleman to try it. Jade understood perfectly well what it was like with the herald. He must have brought me some sleeping tea on purpose while he was working. When the Duke looked at the red-haired girl, he immediately thought that it was Lady Rebellia. The gentleman inquired why Miss looked like that. The maids had previously said that this couldn't be true, and he certainly wouldn't recognize her. Rebellia said the maids simply said they had made her up, so he wouldn't recognize her. The Duke was surprised that they did this, so that he would not be able to recognize her, and therefore smiled. That's why they sent her to him in the game, and the man immediately knew that the maids did it. The lady couldn't understand how he'd figured it out. Jade pointed out that they should have told her to change her perfume first, because she smelled like her. Well, it wasn't just him. Harold was acting very strange, and that was the most noticeable thing. Today, the hot one gave her a fake ID, so he didn't expect it. But still, the lady thought that he was rubbing himself since she changed her appearance. And it was all in vain. The Duke remarked that it seemed to him that even if she had changed her perfume and he had met her on the street, he would still have recognized her. I don't know anything. They were bound only by a contract, but for him, she was like salvation. Nightmares haunted him every day, the curse manifesting itself more and more frequently. And the Duke gradually lost the will to fight him. The days when he turned into a monster were terrifying. Rebellia rescued him from that life, and they never had a chance to talk properly. The Duke is grateful to her with all his heart for the peace of mind she gave him, so he sincerely intends to help her more than they agreed on, to at least balance the contract which was tilted against her. Even though she said she didn't trust anyone, he would try until she trusted him. So the Duke asked her to take care of herself, because he would be waiting in any case. The maid was sent along with her mistress, and Jeremias. When they arrived, she was in complete shock, seeing a truly beautiful ceiling. Jeremias pointed out that she was right. The glass ceiling at Ermont Station was famous for its beauty. The maid shouted that he should stay in character and that his name was now Kelvin. The boy was startled, but immediately knew what to do. The maid shouted at him that she was his servant, so he should speak informally. Rebellia wondered if everything was all right between the two of them. The training is complete. Mary is in charge of makeup, as well as their staff, and Kelvin, or Jeremias, is in charge of security. Rebellia noted that her father had also built this building. Mining and railroads are the Ephelentia family's main sources of income. Previously, there were no railways or trains in the empire, and my father was keen on traveling at that time. As soon as he saw them, and having received permission from the imperial family, he began to import them. It's just a station where the train stops, but my father was so dedicated to his work that he put so much effort into its construction. Whatever it takes, she needs to get this Ermont station back too. The knight noted that they had arrived. Jeremias asked his mistress to get up, and the maid noticed that they were now behaving like real brother and sister. Mary said she was with them too. It was time to leave for Merdanian, so they needed to hurry. The compartment was very luxurious, and the lady could not believe that everything was shaking just as much as before. Mary remarked that 4 days had passed, and she still wasn't feeling any better. Jeremias informed the lady that he had brought lemon water and mints. Robelia said she wanted to rest for a bit, so she closed her eyes. Mary was shocked to find herself so seasick. It seemed the lady was having a hard time traveling. Mary pointed out that they could have sent a representative instead of going to the mines in person. Jeremias himself doesn't understand this. The representatives would not be able to do what the lady is going to do. Somehow, I don't know, she managed to become a representative of the palace, but she has neither status nor experience, so no one expects much from her. So Robelia intends to try hard. If the mines truly become the property of Her Majesty, she will gain more trust. Mary said that then the lady needed to cheer up quickly, and Jeremias told her to eat some more sugar. Be that as it may, she needs Mary and Jeremias' help for the future case. The knight promised to do everything in his power, and the maid agreed with him and also promised. The lady noted that if we talk briefly about the upcoming business, she will buy one mine. Everything is legal, and they don't need any extra noise, so they have to be careful that their identities are not revealed, and she is also going to find one person. Suddenly, the train began to brake sharply, and a commotion erupted inside. Even during the stop, it began shaking violently. The conductor informed the passengers that they had arrived in the western mining region, Merdanian. Hotel Merdanian. Mary thought they were going to die. As soon as they got off the train, traders descended on them from all sides. It could have happened that the lady's wig would have flown off, and then they wouldn't even know what they would have done. Mary was so worried about that. Robelia, who thought about this? I wonder what would have happened if they had been exposed immediately upon arrival. Jeremias remarked that the merchants were too pushy, and Solyanka said that the sir was like a flattened pie. Mary finally got everything sorted out. The lady said she did a great job. Now that the luggage is taken care of, if the lady still has the strength, they can go and look around Merdanian. The maid was shocked that the mistress wanted to do this right now, because she did not expect that she had so much energy. The knight asked about his mistress and where they were heading. Robelia noted that it was evening, so they were going to eat. Mary was very excited because they would be having dinner in a new region. But she was shocked when she saw where the dinner would be. Robelia thought they were bankrupt. The knight asked her to wait here. He would see if they were working or not. When the lady looked around the corner, she noticed a man saying that his family had already borrowed 10 million. The guy was shocked because the gentleman said it was 10 million, but they only borrowed 2. The man said that if they borrowed it, they should pay it back with interest, because they weren't paying it back. The man shouted for him to give him at least 30,000. He said that he really didn't have it. Well, he came here for a drink and he's not going to give it back. Suddenly, a man approached her from behind. The stranger noted that he had not seen this girl in Merdanian before, and that she had arrived at an untimely time. One shouted that she was hiding here like a rat, and that she probably knew that bastard Joel. Another said that she was just passing by. Larry shouted at him to take his dirty hands off his mistress, but the stranger immediately pushed her away. Robelia immediately rushed after the maid, but the man grabbed her by the hand. The servant told the master that he would lay out the documents in his office. Jade asked him to put the ones concerning Merdanian separately. The gentleman was confident that Robelia was doing well. The stranger then remarked that he hadn't caught a large catch in a long time. He was very curious to see how much they would give for such a girl. Robelia didn't even know what to do. The man said that even if not, things weren't going well, so she would do. If this continues, they might be exposed, so the lady hit the man on the legs. Robelia realized that she needed to call Sir Jeremias quickly. The stranger became very angry and shouted that he would kill her. At that very second, something hit him in the face. It was Jeremias who was apologizing for coming so late. His ally was shocked that he'd lost, so he had no idea what to do next. He hadn't even called any of the guys yet, so he decided he needed to get away quickly. He shouted after them that he remembered them. Robelia approached Mary and asked if the liana was okay, since it had fallen because of the lady. The girl said everything was fine, but she'd gotten her clothes dirty. She was very upset because the mistress's hands were wounded. Jeremias said that he would call a doctor, but the lady said that it was not necessary because everything was fine, and it was just a small bruise, it would quickly pass. Robelia needed to talk to someone, and then she approached the man and asked if this gentleman was Joel Primer. The man turned to her and asked again who she was to know him. Joel Primer is Silverstone's son. The lady noted that Silverstone's son is the same as she read in the original. Robelia said that she came because she had a request for him. Joel was surprised and noted that as she could see, he was barely making ends meet, and he also didn't know how she knew his name. Robelia said that he had a debt of 10 million, and she would pay that amount. In exchange, he would arrange a meeting for her with his father, Silverstone. The boy was surprised. He couldn't believe that they had sent people from there and asked if he should bring her to her father, knowing what she was going to do. Joel said that if they think he will sell out his family, then that is not true, and they can consider him a fool, and it is better to let them beat him up like you idiots. They did not understand at all why they would hit someone and ask him to listen, because it seemed there was a misunderstanding. There's nothing she can do, she might lose it, but for the sake of the plan, there's nothing left to do but give it to someone else now. Robelia asked him to pass this on to Silverstone. She really wants his father to see it. Well, then he'll decide whether to date her or not. 10 million. Just for the transfer of this thing, the gentleman has nothing to lose. They were staying at the Hotel Schwerin, and if he wanted, he could ask Catherine Haird there. Notable points. From an aristocratic family that went bankrupt several generations ago and moved to the provinces, now a commoner. Excellent. They're going to buy the 9th mine, which has caused him nothing but trouble. Jeremias was wearing expensive clothes borrowed from the Duke. The man tried to calm down because until the stamp was put, nothing was sold. As far as he knows, the Hayward family went bankrupt several generations ago, so he's curious how they raised the capital to buy it. Jeremias asked the gentleman why he was so inquisitive about someone else's property. The gentleman didn't understand what kind of look that was for a commoner, and then the gentleman apologized, because as a seller, he must ensure the solvency of the buyers before entering into an agreement. Robelia said that they had recently discovered her great-grandfather's inheritance, government bonds of the Western Kingdom, and then provided the document. Why do they say and said that a few years ago there was a real silk boom? Some of those who find wealth out of the blue are very lucky. The seller said that this was a very good decision. If he had his father's bonds, he would have bought such a mine himself. Robelia noted that they thought it was just a piece of paper and were about to throw it in the firebox, but her father recognized the seal of the Western Kingdom. By now, huge interest should have accrued. The seller was very pleased because he had come across very naive buyers who were completely clueless. We don't even understand the value of the money they just lost. He'd drawn up a draft of the contract first, so they asked to read it. They weren't sure everything was in order, but the gentleman said they needed to read it anyway. Viscount Rowan has no idea, and for him, 700 million seems like a sum that fell to him by a lucky chance. But for her, it is exceptionally cheap. The lady said the contract seemed to be in order. The salesman smiled and told her to firmly stamp it. The seller believed they would be finished in 5 days. During this time, he would report the matter to Count Effalentia, and having received his permission, would definitely sell them the 9th mine. The lady was surprised that it would only take 5 days, because she thought it usually took 2 weeks. Jeremias noted that no matter how fast the train was, the round trip would take a week. The salesman said the Count would be visiting soon, and he intends to report to him personally. Robelia tensed a little when she realized the Count would arrive in person. He'll arrive with Lady Aina. That certainly wasn't the case in the original. It's been at least 3 years since Aina started her first business in the mines. And then a remark came out that this was her first time visiting Merdanian. She suggested digging a little deeper into mine number 9, whose operations had been shut down due to a massive shortage. In just 1 week, she received a huge sum, so the lady did not quite understand why everything had changed and did not want to believe in a bad outcome. It might be because she doesn't act like she did in the original. We need to find out. Malan told Aina that he raised her like a bird in a luxurious cage. This time, she had to pay close attention to everything in Merdanian. She looked at what he was doing to preserve the Effalentian line, and also so that she would know how her honor was built. Aina lowered her eyes and obeyed her father. Effalentius's office in Merdanian. The man said he could ask as much as he wanted, but he wouldn't be able to hire him again, since an old man like him couldn't work in the mines. The man said he wasn't asking for his own benefit. He could rehire the young men who worked under him. The man said he'd even kneel if the master wanted it. They're not being ungrateful here, they're doing business. That's why people must have a conscience. He miscalculated 15 years ago. It was an unfair accusation. I told you he didn't look like the type of person who would do something like that after decades of devotion to the Ephelentia family. The man said that he was fed up, and if he wanted to, he could do the work for him. But in any case, he didn't know anything, and it was time for him to go. Joel approached his father. His father wasn't quite sure what he was doing there, but the boy said he had some business to attend to. He didn't even know if it would be right to give it to his father now. And his father asked him again what he was doing there. Joel said that someone had asked him to give this to him. The gentleman realized it was Mistress Julia's pendant. He then asked who had told him to give it to him. Jeremias told the lady that regarding her request, even in the Information Guild, he could not find out anything about the daughter of Count Ephelentius, besides the fact that she will be attending Baroness Ebien's party. Afterwards, the gentleman asked if he needed any more information, but the lady said there was no need because everything was fine. If Ina came to Merdenion because she behaved differently than in the original, then the events of that day were probably the reason. There would be other reasons there would be information, but since there is none, the lady thinks that Milan brought her in order to restore her position. After all, in Merdenion, where Ephelentius's influence is strongest, Aina's popularity will quickly soar. Only in this scenario will they be able to settle all matters in the capital. Jeremias said that in that case, he would plan everything so as not to accidentally run into the count. The lady was not sure that she would manage to avoid meeting him. The maid informed her mistress that she was entering and added that Mr. Silverstone Premier had arrived. Joel was shocked by how enormous everything inside was. Robelia asked Mr. to pass. Joel was completely horrified and began asking who she even was. He didn't want to believe he'd been fooled, but Silverstone recognized her as Count Ephelentius's daughter. He didn't understand at all how the lady ended up here, and the guy was shocked that they actually knew each other. Robelia remarked that she had come to see him. They asked their son to leave the room, and both the knight and the maid came out. Robelia asked him if he could tell her about that time. After the death of Count Ephelentia, that is, James Silverstone did not obey Malone, and he expelled him, accusing him of embezzling state funds. And even the miners who worked under his leadership were fired for various reasons. And with the entire mining business in Ephelentius's hands, none of them could find work anymore. As a result, half of them, along with their families, left Merdenion. Silverstone went to Malone and asked him to rehire at least other people, but received only humiliation and ridicule for his position. Robelia was shocked by how low Malone had sunk. Silverstone was one of the few who didn't bow to Malone after his father's death. At the source, he also found Robelia and asked her to return the business in the mines in an honest way. Robelia was a villain and had no intention of helping others, but now things are different. The girl said that she too fell for his trick and believed that she was an illegitimate child. But shortly before her death, my mother told how Malone took everything from them through tricks and violence, so she is going to return all the property that belonged to her, and after that, she'll repay Malone for all his actions with something worse than death. This girl, she's been through a lot during this time. To do this, she needs to start by getting the mines back into business, and she needs Mr. Primer's help. Robelia also plans to regain what he lost. A lease agreement. The lady asked if he could gather people together again and work in the mine for Hirsch. Silverstone told the lady that the proposal was inappropriate because he was already committed to her. He also asked her to call him simply Silverstone. He swore allegiance to James as his benefactor and would believe and follow his daughter's words without a doubt. Robelia knew he was devoted to his father, but not to that extent. He trusted her, whom he'd seen for the first time today, just as much as he trusted his father. The girl couldn't understand how this was possible, yet she knew that perhaps loyalty really did exist. Joel, meanwhile, couldn't understand why they'd even gone out, and the maid told him to be quiet because they had an important conversation. I need to tell them both about what happened today. They've already refused 3 times. Mary was very tired and said that she only needed to sign the contract for the mine, but for some reason, the lady said that she would go to the party. The owner was very happy when he saw Mr. Kelvin and Miss Catherine come. The lady was surprised that he was waiting for them at the hotel. He stuck to her like a leopard. The salesman said they were out for a walk, and the weather was so nice, it was perfect for walking. They just bumped into each other by chance. It was definitely fate, so he decided to give them invitations to the party. After all, they'd already declined to go 3 times, and it wasn't a coincidence that they'd met. The salesman said it was their first time here, which was why they were refusing. This was Merdenion. They should get used to enjoying parties with aristocrats and ordinary businessmen. Kelvin said parties weren't really their thing. The salesman insisted that if Mr. couldn't make it, Lady Catherine could come instead. The seller said he'd keep it in mind when they arrived. They ended up accepting it. Mary couldn't understand how people like her could survive. Jeremias said everything was fine, and he could go himself. She would be introduced to Count Ephelentius at the party. The lady said that it was not worth it. There was always a chance of getting caught, and if it was necessary to meet with him for the contract, then she would meet. Robelia decided to take the risk. At the party, word came that Lady Catherine hired had arrived. It seemed Malone wasn't here yet. She heard a man say he was late because of business. If he had known that he would meet a girl like her, he would have rushed here earlier. Her face was unfamiliar, so he assumed she was alone. Robelia didn't understand what it was. It would be tiresome to contact him, so she apologized, but the man said she needed to hear his name first and could refuse later. This is Theodore Count Legreton's eldest son. He wants to dance with her, which is why he asked her family. Robelia remarked that it seemed he was mistaken, because she was a commoner. The man was shocked that she had deceived him. Everyone started talking about Mr. Theodore, and Alan looked in that direction. The lady who was talking to Alan did not understand what was going on, and the gentleman asked him to forgive her because he needed to go away. Theodore could not understand at all how a despicable commoner dared to pretend to be an aristocrat. Robelia didn't understand what was going on because she hadn't done anything Theodore didn't understand at all. What didn't do meant. Alan apologized to his brother in front of the girl. He couldn't understand where he'd come from. Alan announced that the girl was his partner. The lady was very surprised when she saw him. Robelia realized he couldn't recognize her. Alan remarked that she looked like Catherine of the Hayward family. He apologizes for his brother. He made a big mistake. The lady said there was no need. On the contrary, she was grateful that he helped her. Robelia was glad he didn't recognize her. He simply wanted to interrupt my dignified older brother behavior. The lady thinks the heir's place will go to her younger brother. It's been so awkward her brother always bringing them down, so the gentleman asked her to stay with him for a while, if that's okay. They'll have something like a temporary partnership. Robelia thought he was pretending to be nice to everyone, but it seems that's not the case. Mellon said that Ina is the head of their branch in Merdanion. Alan noted that it seemed like the Ephelentia had arrived since it was so noisy. He also asked the lady if she was interested. The girl asked if there was anyone among the entrepreneurs who didn't know about the Count's family. The gentleman remarked that she was right, since it was a legendary family. The lady assumed he was interested in Aina. Alan said he didn't know. They say if the bonds are reliable, and she has confidence in them, then she should take them at any cost. Well, lately he's been questioning whether this is right. Something has come up that worries him. Robelia didn't understand at all why he suddenly started talking about bonds. Probably rumors had already reached Hayward about his success with them, so the lady asked again if he should talk about the Western Kingdom's bonds. The gentleman said nothing of the sort, and pointed out that she had asked about Lady Aina. If she wants to talk to the Count, then you first need to start a conversation with her. She is greedy for attention, so she will not ignore it. If she's lucky, the Count might be interested in her. I don't think he was talking about bonds. It seems my brother has become interested in something else. So now the lady can go. Robelia didn't understand at all what kind of exclusive policy this was. The lady said that she would go, and also thanked the gentleman for his help. He was seeing her for the first time, so he didn't quite understand why he was spouting such nonsense. He even blushed at it. Lady Aina's arrival in Merdanion may be for her studies. Many believed she was indeed preparing to begin her training as heir. Robelia realized that instead of the position of palace representative, she would be given the business in the mines. This happened about 3 years earlier. From now on, she should also keep in mind how nervous Malone will be when his property is taken away. He's a vile man, so there's no telling where she might jump from. The salesman didn't even know where Lady Catherine was. And then, he found and asked the lady to come to him because he wanted to introduce her to the Count. The Viscount told His Grace that as he had said, she was the daughter of the Hayward family. She wished to purchase the 9th mine using Western Kingdom bonds. The Duke realized that this was the same customer and asked her to come closer. Despite all her determination, the fear lingers in her mind. Everything is fine. The disguise is perfect. She needs to appear sincere. They say she got rich on bonds. Nine has the greatest potential. He values it the most. So she's going to buy it. She's a true investment genius. This is very different from what he usually says. The lady said she was honored to meet him. After this, the lady greeted and bowed to the gentleman, and he did not understand why she was sweating. Meanwhile, the maid and the knights sat together. Mary said that nothing would come of it. Jeremias thought so he decided to go meet her. Malon didn't understand why sweat was pouring off her. The lady was very worried that perhaps he recognized hers. The gentleman noted that young entrepreneurs are so nervous when they start their first big business. He didn't notice anything. The master told her to leave her fear behind because people lived in this place too. True, she could pretend to be a nervous businessman. Regardless, he admires her intelligence. After all, she intends to buy this mine for 700 millions. Some people claim that there is nothing there, but she shouldn't believe that. Who knows, there might be an untold amount of gold there if she buys it. Robelia became interested in how he would seal it if she refused to sign the contract. The gentleman said that he would sign the contract right now and asked the Viscount to bring the documents quickly so that he could put his signature right there. Robelia didn't understand what Anna was doing here and why she wasn't in the banquet hall now. She needed to quickly greet the lady before passing by. Otherwise, she could get caught. Anna called her sister, and the lady was very scared and did not understand what she was talking about. Anna said it was Robelia, but the girl took her hand back and said she was mistaken. Anna apologized and added that she just said it because she wanted to say it. Suddenly, Jeremias and Mary ran up to her. He said she hadn't returned for a long time, so he came to meet her. He also asked if he was disturbing her. The lady said everything was fine, and she believed the lady had mistaken her for someone else, after which she apologized and said she would leave. Ina told her not to worry, because she wouldn't tell anyone about her secret if she didn't want to, sir. Malon didn't notice anything, but Ina definitely recognized her. Robelia heard that this girl was fixated on Robelia, which was already strange. It seemed like she didn't know her as well as she thought. Robelia remarked that, come to think of it, she wondered how they'd ended up here in the first place. The maid had said they were simply worried about her and had come here. Jeremias said that they were very worried and came, and suddenly Mary saw the contract in the lady's hands. Robelia said that they had made an agreement that if they paid the remaining money tomorrow, the mine would be completely hers. Jeremias noticed that the lady had worked so hard all this time, so today he had prepared a special dish. The mistress was surprised, and the maid now understood why the knight chose the ingredients himself today. Mary said that she was a servant of the Parado family and could not lose, so they would have a cooking duel. And so unexpectedly, a culinary battle began. The maid's dish didn't quite turn out well. Mary thought it was strange because Hilda seemed to do everything the same way, but she did it better. To be honest, she was never responsible for cooking. Her duties included serving guests. Well, Mary never imagined she'd lose to Sir Jeremias the knight. For some reason, the lord felt betrayed when she heard about serving guests. She also told the lady that she had done her job admirably. Mary suggested they quickly try what Knight Jeremias had prepared. Robelia remarked that it was indeed delicious, but he was busy training, so she wondered when he learned to cook. Jeremias said that he used to cook every day with his younger brothers and sisters to feed them. Yes, after he started working for the Duke, their family's situation improved, and there was no longer such a need. Mary didn't even know about it, and also noticed that now, he is Lady Robelia's older brother. You most likely felt like you were cooking for your little sister again. Jeremias didn't like this, so he said he would go get some salt. Mary was unhappy because he went to get the salt at night. Jeremias had no idea what was wrong with him. He certainly had no ill feelings toward Lady Robelia. Why did you for a moment have the thought that he doesn't like her? But in the future, he needs to be more careful, because even thinking like that is rude. After all, even a trivial word can hurt. The boys were very happy because now they could work again. Silverstone noted that this time the mine belonged to Ephelentia, so they would definitely be able to work. Today, all the drinks are on him. They decided to drink everything that was there. The Duke told the Viscount he had made a great deal. Rowan said he was honored to contribute to his master's business. Malin never thought there would be fools who would buy the dead mine. This trip to Merdanion promises good results, and Milan is very pleased with himself. Merdanion Bank. The gentleman reported that everything was correct. The lady was grateful for waiting. She stated that after checking the bank check and its contents, they would complete the transaction. A deal is being made between Mr. Hierdos and the head of the Ephelentia branch in Merdanion, Viscount Rohan. He intends to purchase the 9th mine for 700,000. Kelvin confirmed that everything was correct, adding that he too hadn't noticed any errors. The bank employees said they would send a certificate of change of ownership of the ninth mine. The Viscount didn't believe the deal would actually go through. For this conversation, they recalled their workers from the mine in advance, so they could start work immediately. The Viscount remarked that he would pray that they would find the gold mine as soon as possible, and remarked that they would definitely be able to develop the mine. Jeremias noticed that he could no longer hold any of the girls after the contract was signed, so he said that he would go. He was also grateful for the excellent deal. The Viscount said goodbye with a smile. The gentleman provided a copy of the certificate, with which he will be able to enter the mine. Joel thought he should pass it on to his father. The master said that if he said it was Catherine's request, he would get to work immediately. Joel realized this place was a closed mine. The guys, when they looked at the mine, asked the boss if this was true. Silverstone ordered him to watch his language, because he probably forgot that they were akin to benefactors for them. It's he as the boss who should stop giving orders and think clearly. He's pushing ahead like a bulldozer. This is really the ninth mine. Joel asked her father if this girl was really a liar. The father was shocked that his son thought the same. The boy remarked that buying a closed mine at such a high price, there was no explanation for it other than that the Count had cheated her just like he had done before. Buy the most hopeless mine. What should they do now? Perhaps they should go to the employment agency again, but they won't hire them. Silverstone offered to let them dig. The guy said he was crazy because how could they dig a mine that had been closed? Ephelentia hasn't worked here since last year. There can't be any gold mine here. Robelia said she would appear. Mary told the lady that the knight had said the mine was closed. 5 minutes ago, Jeremias said Joel told him the mine was closed. The maid was horrified when she learned this. Robelia asked the lady if she had heard a similar parable about a treasure hunter who would have found treasure if he had taken just one step, but he got tired and did not take it. Jeremias noted that this was an old story and that his grandmother had told it to him as a child. Mary asked what happened next. It seemed a porter had appeared, the traveler, and the porter set off on a journey to find the treasure. But the greedy traveler did not go far, and having taken all the things that he could get money for, he turned back alone. The porter, left alone in an unfamiliar place without his belongings, wandered around the area for another week and finally found the treasure. That's why the lady is planning to become a porter. She thinks they'll be very surprised when they find out how much gold is buried there. Mary thought the lady was very cool, and the knight thought about it. Robelia asked if they were saying the miners had gathered at the mine. The knight replied that they were saying they needed to check the condition of the land, and she immediately said that they needed to go and convince them that gold would appear in this mine. Mary told them to come back quickly, and she would stay and clean up here. Robelia is the owner of that mine, and the miners wonder if she even knew what kind of place it was when she bought it. Silverstone couldn't calm him down. The man kept saying there wasn't even any ore, let alone gold. Thompson told his boss he was trying to control himself. He began asking the lady how she would justify not being able to pay them when she couldn't find anything there. The miners pointed out that he was right. Robelia told them there had been a misunderstanding. Whether there is gold in the mine or not, they will be paid according to the contract. And now they'll focus on developing this place. If they promise to work on the mine, she'll pay them a year's salary in advance. After this, the lady asked what they thought about this. The man decided to get to work right away. He'd been yelling that he wouldn't do it just a moment ago, but he ended up showing up anyway. The man said that the money was not small, and that he would not be paid a year in advance anywhere else. And if they dig, they will say later that there is no money, they can just leave. Silverstone told the lady she was so reckless. The lady apologized, asking him for a favor without explaining. The gentleman remarked that she really did resemble James, so the girl decided to ask him what her father was like. Silverstone said there was no one in the world more reckless than him, but he never lost. Even if sometimes things turned out the way he expected, he always had the strength to turn it to his advantage, and he thinks that the lady also has this strength. Robelia was very grateful to the man for believing in her. The ninth mine would not be a failure. What a countless treasure that the greedy traveler missed when he hastily chose the advantage that was in plain sight will become the ninth mine. Robelia was very interested in the Count's expression on all this. A week later, Jeremias wrote a letter to the esteemed Duke because he wanted to report to him about life in Merdanian. The first day passed peacefully, except for a small skirmish with local bandits. As planned, they succeeded in purchasing the ninth mine and began development. And a week later, As Lady Rebellia had predicted, the miners found gold. Gold appeared, and the knight told about it in a letter because he thought it was amazing. A new deposit has been discovered. The man heard the reserves. They were enormous. It was the first such discovery in 7 years. The man asked which mine they were talking about. The other replied that he should know about the time Ephelentia struck gold. The previous Count of Ephelentia gained immense wealth thanks to gold mining in the second mine. He was a figure who sparked a fire in the hearts of entrepreneurs. This is true, as in the second mine, they dug up in the ninth as well. The man was in complete shock when he heard about this and shouted, asking if it was really in the ninth, and was outraged that it was the Ephelentia mine again. Only they are capable of this. The man noted that no one really knows about this yet. The mine's owner had recently changed. They say that these are some young brothers and their sister from the common people. The Viscount understood that this was impossible, and he needed to return the ninth mine before the Count found out about it. The Viscount could pull the wool over this idiot's eyes. Rumors quickly spread throughout the city. The Viscount came to meet with the Hayards. The knight wrote that the Viscount had arrived. The lady was surprised that he was offering to sell the mine back to him. The Viscount said he'd buy it for 2 billion, even 25 billion. He said there was no guarantee more gold would appear, and she hadn't even paid off her debts. He is going to buy the mine and is offering a ridiculous sum of 2.5 billion E. The Viscount said that even if they found more gold, it would cost a pretty penny. If 25 billion was enough, he would write a check right here and now. Rebellia said that if they mine gold properly, they will recoup this amount in 6 months. It turns out that she looks like a fool to sell the mine for such a price, and it's such a pity. The lady also asked the Viscount to return to his quarters. He couldn't believe it, as these people were newcomers and knew nothing about business. Finally, he left, and the lady was very happy. The knight remarked that he seemed to still have a sense of shame. The Viscount received a refusal and humbly withdrew. Things are proceeding smoothly in Merdagnon, as expected. Therefore, the Duke need not worry, and the knight also wished him good health. The Duke was pleased, because it seemed they were coping, and the butler was also very pleased to hear this. The shop assistant noted that the gentleman immediately noticed the beautiful item, and added that it was the last one left. At first, the Duke didn't understand what he was talking about, but then he remembered that he had chosen to give a gift, and also to inspect it. The seller asked the gentleman who he was going to give this to, perhaps his girlfriend. Well, the gentleman said it wasn't his girlfriend. The salesman pointed out that he just hadn't confessed yet. Jade started to say that this was not true, but the seller noted that he was still embarrassed, and no matter what he would say, that this bracelet brings good luck. If you wear it, it will protect you from great misfortune, and will be an excellent gift for a declaration of love. Suddenly, the gentleman noticed the monster in whose hands was Rebellia. The servants shouted for the master to move away, and Rebellia was the master and asked for help. He immediately took out his sword. His other side asked if he would really save that girl. He must think about his curse. Not only will he not be able to save her, but he will turn into a monster if he grabs the sword. And when the Duke becomes a monster, he will kill her with his own hands. The Duke woke up with a letter in his hands. Then he went out and saw the butler standing outside the door. Geralt told the master that he would not allow him because he had spent the last 15 days earning money because he also could not sleep. Therefore, the gentleman needs to rest as his body will weaken. The Duke turned to the butler and told him to get out of the way. Count Ephelentius and his daughter were welcomed into the boutique by Rose. They closed for a break to serve the Count. The gentleman said that they had come to look at a modest dress that would lift his daughter's spirits, but he did not understand why no one was there. They wanted him to be comfortable and made room as soon as they heard he was coming. The Count was very happy and thanked him for this, and also asked his daughter how she was and whether her mood had improved. The saleswoman told the lady that these were the most popular styles in Merdagnon. They looked premium and could also give a sense of uniqueness. Therefore, she can recommend it with complete confidence. Ina noted that this is truly the first time she's seen a dress with such a design. The lady said that she was very beautiful, but immediately remembered her father's words, that everything their family had was not her property. After that, he slapped her in the face and said that he gave it all to her. That's why her expression immediately changed. The saleswoman offered to show me another style, because the atmosphere had suddenly changed. Meanwhile, the Count also found a dress for her and asked how she liked it, since Papa himself chose it for her, so he asked her to try it on. When she tried it on, he couldn't believe that it was his daughter, because she was very beautiful. The Count also asked them to bring the dress she had been looking at. The saleswoman said they'd show her more, but asked her to wait a minute. Her father asked her if she liked the dress. She said it was true. When he raised his hand to stroke her head, she remembered that moment again. He remarked that he was earning money for his daughter's sake. Everything is done to make his daughter happy. So he asks her to listen to her daddy and fix one little thing. That's right, he's behaving as before. It's just that incident really angered father, because she treated Her Majesty inappropriately. Aina realized it couldn't be that her father, who treated her so well, didn't love her. She couldn't allow such mistakes to be hidden anymore. The saleswomen were grateful to the gentleman for choosing their store. The Count noted that they had worked hard, and that thanks to them, his daughter had had fun. They also asked the Count to accept their congratulations, since she had heard that gold had appeared in the 9th mine. And this was Ephalentia's business. So they began to congratulate him that after 7 years, a new gold mine had been found. His insight could not be surpassed. The Count was in complete shock and asked again what she was saying. The Viscount had no idea how to tell the Count. The man desperately wanted it to be just a dream, or better yet, faint. Suddenly, the man met the Viscount and said the Count was looking for him. Gold appeared, and what's more, the deposits were larger than those in the 2nd mine. The Viscount said that he came to them and offered $2.5 billion to buy it out, but was categorically refused. The Count grabbed the mug and threw it near the Viscount, shouting that he was a useless cretin, because he just ran away from them, and now says the mine's value is even higher. He couldn't understand how they could have developed it so well that gold appeared within a week. How many hundreds of millions did he invest there? And still just 5 years ago, he was a laughingstock because of the 9th mine, because he went into a huge loss. And now these ignorant puppies are getting it for free. The Viscount began to apologize, because he believed he had made a mistake. The Count asked him to double-check whether their family had truly gone bankrupt. If not with money, then he will find another way to get everything back. Joel asked Jeremias where to put the development document. Then he asked him to give it to him. Rebellia suddenly looked at her hand and realized she was missing her bracelet. She had no idea how she had managed to lose the bracelet the Duke had given her. She remembered that she was attacked then, and it was probably because she was suddenly grabbed by the arm. Mary asked the lady if something had happened, and the lady said that she wanted to go get some fresh air. It's good. It's nearby. Rebellia said they'd finish the rest of the work when she got back, so they could take a little break now. The girl asked what she was talking about. She would just count the volume of production and be done. After all, she called her a good worker. Another guy told her not to get cocky since he was almost done, too. Mary told everyone to rest since they could do everything later. I was grateful to her, and when I walked down the street, I was able to find my bracelet. It has come undone and is loose, but it looks like it could be fixed. Suddenly, her brother called her and said that he came for her just in case, so that nothing happened. They finally finished. The maid was surprised that they had already returned. A miner ran into the room and reported that there was a fire in the mine warehouse. Several miners were trapped inside short-handed. They were very surprised and didn't understand what was happening. Joel went there immediately. Only one lady's maid remained, and she was told to call the people in his place, and the lady as well. Joel came in to help them. They need to put out the fire at the entrance, so they need to hurry. Joel came out and pulled the man out. There was another man inside. The miner asked for at least someone to help him, because he was feeling very bad. Jeremias doused himself with water and said he was going to go. The one the boy pulled out lost consciousness. The lady told him to lay him on the ground. His condition was worse than Rebellia thought. He inhaled too much smoke, so we need to rinse his mouth with water. Rebellia promised to bring a doctor, but she couldn't understand why the fire had broken out so suddenly. She wondered if there was anything that could have caught fire in the warehouse, unless someone had done it deliberately. Perhaps someone was sickened by the oil and set it on fire. But now is not the time to think about that. Rebellia also realized it could be the Count. She was caught while running for a doctor. They doused her with water, and the lady woke up not knowing where she was. The boys were glad she had woken up. Rebellia immediately recognized who it was. The boy remarked that it was him, and assumed she saw a familiar face. He too was surprised, and could never have imagined that they would see each other again under such circumstances. But he was going to. It was still good that she cried to him in this way. He remarked that it was fate, and they would do everything quickly. He handed her the application for a change of ownership of Mine 9, and ordered her to sign it. She must understand that this is a statement about a change of ownership of the 9th mine. The lady tried to come to her senses. She needed to find a way to get out of here alive. The pretty alien woman hadn't stopped doing mining work. It was a very rough occupation for grown-up men here. At first, she decided to stall for time. The man said she simply had to sign, and then he'd let her go. Robelia couldn't understand how she could believe that. The man remarked that it was very sad that she didn't believe the bandits' words. Frankly, they don't like torture and a lot of blood, so they just grabbed her. She doesn't even know how much he racked his brains over how to get that guy out of the way. Now she understood why the fire had occurred. According to the client's terms, they were supposed to get a signature on the contract, and that was it. Therefore, she shouldn't take him out, and therefore she needs to sign. They won't be able to take the mine away that way anyway. The problem is she might not survive. He needs to remain so carefree. Robelia said that was good. The man remarked that it was excellent, so she should sign it, and then they could go their separate ways. The man noticed that she had tried so hard, and now he ordered her to be gotten rid of. The man apologized, as shutting her up had also been the client's condition. He lunged at her with a knife, but the mistress threw him aside and fell. The guy noted that they said they would let him go right away. It's good that it turned out that way. He also prefers to do it with his bare hands. He began to strangle the lady, and awareness was fading from her with each passing second. But suddenly, someone hit that man. It was Duke Parado. The lady was very surprised, and he immediately turned to Robelia. There was no one else left inside. His condition was better than Kelvin thought. Luckily, he wasn't badly hurt. But it's really strange. Nothing here should have caught fire. This is the first time in 30 years that the gentleman has heard of a warehouse catching fire. Jeremias asked if this was indeed the first fire. He confirmed it, and added that the warehouse only contained pickaxes, so it wasn't entirely clear what could have happened. Even if a spark flares up, it immediately goes out. The fire couldn't start in the warehouse on its own, so it must be something else. Suddenly, the knight asked where the lady was. Mary told him she had gone to find a doctor. It seemed she hadn't returned for too long. Jeremias immediately ran in the direction his mistress had gone. He urgently needed to find Robelia. The Duke asked his mistress if she could stand up. Robelia confirmed this and said she was very grateful. She told the Duke that it was a mine warehouse, so it could only be opened from the inside with a special key. The kidnappers must have taken him. They're unconscious outside. The Duke placed the robe on Robelia. She decided to ask him how he knew she was there, and even came. The Duke said that she had sent a letter asking for help. That's why he had come. The lady said that he didn't have to come to sort everything out. The Duke said he was not sure what was in the letter, because he had not read it. Robelia smiled and said that he had looked at it after all. The Duke said that she had written that she needed help. She thought that since Malan had missed out on a mine that had become a jackpot for penniless commoners, he would definitely do something about it. He will send people with threats, drive them into a dead end, and force them to leave the mine. So she planned to frame it as a sale to his lordship, who had heard rumors about the 9th mine, because if the mine became his property, Malone would no longer be able to interfere. That's what the letter said. But in the end, what she feared happened first. It seemed she had made a mistake. She hadn't thought they would want to start with murder without even trying other methods. The vile Viscount went along with it. But she couldn't understand how the Duke knew she'd been captured and came to her aid. The gentleman said that he found her as soon as he arrived, but he was followed by suspicious men, so he followed them. That's how he ended up here, but in the end he still couldn't help as he was supposed to. Robelia thanked his lordship for saving her. He asked if she would thank him even if they were locked in. This is exactly the case, so we need to think about how to get them out. Robelia remembered her bracelet, but didn't see it on her hand. Yet the lady was certain she had picked it up. Robelia asked for forgiveness, because the bracelet he gave her seemed to have broken and gotten lost somewhere. The girl was upset because it was his gift. Pertsev thought about what would have happened if he hadn't had that dream. He wasn't sure he could come to this place. The Duke said there was nothing wrong with that. The main thing was that she was alive. In fact, he bought the bracelet when he went out to inspect his lands. It protects against troubles. But 4 days ago, when the bracelet broke, he had a dream that she was in danger. Then, he personally came to Merdanion, because from that moment on, anxiety began to overcome him without any apparent cause, and he couldn't sleep. So he wanted to make sure that she was not in any danger here. And thanks to her help, he did not have dreams well this time. In his dreams, he helped her. It's simply amazing. The Duke thinks this vision was also due to her magic. It seems he couldn't sleep properly. She is very sorry. Her magic really did disturb the Duke with its attention. To perceive this situation rationally, it is truly incredible. The lady remarked that it was astonishing. She also noticed that it sounded like someone was coming. It was the knight's voice. Mary and Silverstone were with him. Jeremias was very glad that the lady was safe, and also did not understand at all what His Highness the Duke was doing here. Robelia asked the boss if everything was all right with the miners. He confirmed it and said they had successfully settled everything with the warehouse. The boss couldn't believe that the lady had been kidnapped by kidnappers. He should have been more vigilant, because what would happen to her? Silverstone is embarrassed to even look her in the eye. They all ended well, so the lady is grateful for their diligent search. The maid said they were truly very worried. Jeremias told his mistress that she had dropped a bracelet on a forest path. They discovered cart tracks nearby and followed them. The lady was surprised when she saw the bracelet. He saved her twice. He also hates to tell her this, but there are signs of arson in the warehouse. Robelia noted that the kidnappers immediately claimed it was their doing. Therefore, the lady decided it was necessary to find out who was behind this. Robelia sat with her master while he slept. Her face was no longer as serious as it had been before. Jeremias informed the mistress that he had cooked soup for her. The maid added that she had also missed breakfast. This time she should eat well. The Duke would have been worried too, since she wasn't eating anything. Robelia was very grateful and said she would eat everything. Mary began to think something was wrong, so she asked the lady if she was okay. Robelia said she was fine. She only has a bruise. More importantly, she's worried that the Duke still hasn't woken up. Jeremias added that he was a Duke after all, so she shouldn't worry too much about him. Besides, due to the effects of the curse, he hardly slept for a very long time. In a few days, he will recover and wake up. Robelia pondered the consequences of the curse. In the original, very little was said about Jade's curse. The curse the mage cast was truly terrifying. The nightmares soon became reality, and even after waking from sleep, he continued to feel like a monster. And if he lost consciousness from helplessness and fatigue, he suffered a nightmare that seemed like hell, that Jade had no chance to rest. Fatigue accumulated, and when the body reached its limit, the curse knocked its target into a coma. The more time passed, the more he, a former man, lost his will. He irrevocably became a monster and died quietly in his sleep. His condition has not worsened much in 2 days, so the lady can save him. This request was made because the lady thought complications had arisen, since he wasn't waking up. Robelia wanted to disperse a scent that would promote sleep. She also asked her maid to buy at the market what she wrote on the piece of paper. Mary told the lady that she could be counted on. Therefore, the lady was very grateful to her. The maid also asked that she be sure to eat the soup. Jeremias turned to the lady and asked if he could help in any way. The lady remarked that he had indeed taken the uniform of the knightly order with him. The gentleman said that was true, and he had taken it just in case. Robelia asked him if he could go out into the city with her for a short while, because now they need an image of Jeremias. They discussed the plan with the superheroes beforehand. The lady decided to prepare everything before the Duke woke up.